Darkest greetings for sci-fi and Terminator fans. Drew here from Horror, Sci-Fi, and Beyond, and we're here to do one of my most anticipated episodes of the year, and that's going to be for the 40th anniversary of the Terminator franchise, the James Cameron original Terminator and Terminator 2. And with me to review these movies is Mr. Eric White. How's it going, man?
Going good. How's everyone out there? Excited to be here. Excited to talk about one of my favorite movies,
Oh yeah, for
but
sure.
uh but then also one of like the independent movies that I'm always like really well made for its time period. I really love the
Mhm.
first Terminator,
Yeah.
but
And
excited to be here.
I forgot to mention that you are the man, the myth, the legend.
Oh, that's right. I always assume you're going to say that it's called Jackson. That like guys,
Oh yeah.
every time you do that
Well, I got
intro.
my little nickname for Jackson, which is Action Jackson. And speaking of which,
hmm
Action Jackson, how's it going?
Howdy, y'all. It's going good.
That's good, man. And we got another special guest with us today. You know him from the Batman review that I did a couple of years ago, and that is Mr. Benny Fuller. How's it going?
Going good, and you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to review some Terminator. And
Yep.
to cut to the chase, let's go around the room and talk about how we discovered the Terminator movies. And since you're the special guest, Benny, I'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I think the first time I saw anything from Terminator, I was at like a Best Buy or Walmart or something. They had Terminator 2 playing, and I'm like, what's this? I'm like, because I recognized it was a Terminator movie. Um, and I was like, is this the first one or the second one? And they're like, I think it's the second one. I'm like, isn't he supposed to be the good guy in the second one? Like, why is he shooting at a bunch of cops? like,
mm,
um, obviously later on I got into it, but that was I think my first experience seeing any of the actual footage, aside from just, all the pop culture that was surrounding it back
Hmm,
in the 90s when I was growing up still.
hmm
So it was still very, very prevalent.
nice. What about you, Jackson? What's your relationship with Terminator?
Mm, I don't really have like a big relationship with it. I remember because I was 8 when Terminator 2 came out, and you couldn't go anywhere without seeing posters for that. And I was like, what is this? Because I was 8, so I wasn't going to get to go see it because it's rated R.
Hmm.
My dad went to see them though, and he would tell me about them.
That's
I
great.
don't actually remember when I first saw them though. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know if I was probably in high school because I was always going to the video store on the way home from school and
Hmm.
renting a bunch of stuff.
Mhm.
But I don't remember. I haven't seen them like a bunch of times.
Mm.
Like I just rewatched them, and before that, I'd probably seen them both once or twice each.
Yeah.
And I saw like Terminator 3 in the theater. I saw what's the one with
Dark
Christian
Fate.
Bale?
Oh,
That would be Salvation.
Salvation. I saw
Salvation.
that one,
Mm.
and then I didn't see the last two because they just
Okay.
didn't look
Yeah.
very good.
Oh, by
You're
the
not
way,
missing
Jackson,
anything.
before we move on, good for you.
Yeah.
Every time that's gonna be that movie's legacy is Kristen Bale's
Oh,
yeah.
his rant.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is hilarious. Just walking through, da 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 da.
Can nobody tell that it's fucking distracting when Bryce is walking in front of the fucking camera?
I mean,
You're
I'm
a
just
nice
wondering how
guy,
many times
you
he
really
did
are.
that
But then
shit.
it's cutting and you're pulsating
hmm
around.
hmm
I feel like if it was his first time, it's overreaction. But if he's done it like 3 or 4 times, I'd probably lose it too.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyways, Eric, what is your relationship with the Terminator franchise?
I loved the Terminator 2. I watched it a lot as a kid. I actually saw it like in 91 on like pay-per-view at my grandfather's house with like
Nice.
my
Oh
cousins.
wow, you were like
Uh
6.
yeah, no, I was like way too young to be watching it, but
Yeah.
it was with my cousins. They were like teenagers. They were like 18 to 16, and so they were just like, well, "We're gonna watch this." I'm like, "Cool, this sounds great." So I love the first one. I didn't see the second one until like years later, or not. Sorry, I
Mhm.
didn't see the first one until years later on like
Yeah.
USA. I think I saw like a edited for TV version first
Mm,
of that one.
Yeah.
sweet,
But
man.
yeah, I love the first Terminator. I watched it a lot. The second Terminator, I
Yeah.
watched it a lot as a
Yeah.
kid.
I definitely feel like the
So
second Terminator is a little more family friendly, if you can call it
sure.
that. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's it's in a lot of ways it's not as brutal.
Mhm.
There are some things,
and
that are
there's no
more,
sex.
but
Yeah, there's
yeah.
no sex scene
Yeah,
in it.
Yeah,
but
you don't have Lionel Hamilton's boobies.
yeah,
Or Michael Bihn's boobies in the second one.
or Arnold's penis, which was also
That's
That's
the
true.
second one.
You do see
Yeah.
a little silhouette of some
Yep.
Arnold junk.
Yeah.
I'm totally watching that scene again after this.
I didn't even notice it.
I did.
It's like when he's walking up. It's like when he's walking up to the punks, right?
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
like that wide
didn't-
shot,
right
long
at
I
the
shot.
didn't
beginning.
really notice it. No.
Yeah, you got to look
Yeah.
real hard, but it's there if
Okay.
you.
You're telling me that Slice alone sewed his dick in a porno movie, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger sewed his dick in Terminator. That's funny.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, it
yeah.
was. I mean, he's obviously at his peak at that time, and just
Mm,
physically,
Oh yeah.
just seeing him during the first. I mean, and that's one of the things. I mean, we can get into a little bit later, but just the difference in how he looks physically between T1 and T2.
mhm.
You know, it's been what, a 6 or 7 year gap in
Mhm.
between those
Yeah.
filmings.
Yeah, 7
So,
years. Yeah.
you can definitely tell. I mean, he is still at his peak in the first one. He shows up, just
Oh, yeah.
everything is swollen.
Yeah.
He's still got that very youthful look. By T2, I mean, he's still big. He's still very impressive.
Mm.
But when you watch them back to back, it's much easier to spot the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, compared to us mortals, you know, he is still leads
Yeah.
the way. But it's
Yeah.
kind of one of those things you always compare to yourself when you're at that level.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
And
here's
you can
the
tell by
thing.
this point he's kind of changed directions to being
Yeah.
more of a movie star as opposed to
Yeah,
the
for sure. Well,
professional
here's the
bodybuilder.
thing. If
Mhm.
Rob Halford is the metal god, I feel like Arnold Schwarzenegger is the muscle god. He's the god of muscles.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's multiple
Yeah.
time Mr. Universe winner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My quick thing with Terminator is when I started learning who Arnold was and about the Terminator movies, it's right around the time he was first elected governor of California.
Okay.
Okay.
And so I would just hear about him all the time, and I watched T2 on TV, like a censored version.
Mhm.
And I went to go see the third one in theaters,
Mhm.
Mhm.
which was really cool. Top to the hand.
Rise
Yeah.
of the Machines. It was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't great, but it was fine. It's
Yeah.
better than some of the other sequels that came out.
Yeah, I
Especially,
remember
like,
it being
Genesis.
an okay
Yeah.
movie. Yeah.
It was fine.
Yeah.
It's
Especially
around.
the-
It's like
Especially to
Jurassic
watch
Park
Genesis.
3.
I have Genesis. I
Yeah.
haven't watched it yet. It's one of those things I keep meaning to do and just haven't gotten to. And it's one of the things.
It's not great.
We live in just such a content-heavy era
Mm-hmm.
that
Oh, yeah.
sometimes, like,
There's too much. Yeah.
yeah, there's,
Mhm.
and that's one of the things. Like, I feel it would be interesting, if Terminator had come out today, especially the original one, because at the time it's kind of a B movie.
Oh, yeah.
James
Oh, yeah.
Cameron, no one knows who he is. No one knows who Linda Hamilton is. No one knows who Michael Biehn is. It's Arnold is the complete draw, and he's really only got. I mean, so he's got Hercules in New York, but he's fresh off of Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer, so he's
Yeah.
bringing
Mhm.
a lot of credibility to this movie. Because at this time, James Cameron, he's only done 3 things. He's done a short film he made, and then he was like the director on Piranha 2.
Yeah, he was a Roger
So-
Corman guy. R.I.P.
The Spawning. Yeah, he did.
Oh,
he,
yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
Roger
Roger Corman
Corman
died recently.
died. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that's where James Cameron's coming from. He came out of that
Yeah.
whole school of
Doing
filmmaking,
Visual
Yeah.
effects for
which
nothing.
so many great
Yeah.
people came out of
Mhm.
working with Roger Corman. So
The Roger McCorman bone machine that
Right.
was just churning out movies.
Well,
left
that's
and
the
right.
thing about it is apparently Cameron got so stressed out making Piranha 2 that he ended up having a fever dream about
Mhm.
Terminator, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll make this no movie."
yeah, I
Yeah.
heard about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had an opportunity. There's a couple documentaries on those the discs I have. So I did get to watch one of the documentaries on T1, most of the other one on T1. I didn't have a chance to get to the T2 documentaries. That was one thing.
Mhm.
I mean, he got really sick while they were out there filming, has this fever dream, and because he was also very much an artist, he drew that whole the skeleton with a female and a male up at the front of it. So that was like the whole
Mhm.
concept that he put out right there. That was really what drove the
Right.
film
Yeah.
forward.
And what a crazy, terrifying image of like a chrome skeleton.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
like
Dude,
stalking
yeah.
you.
You shit my pants if I saw
yeah.
that.
Hey, that is Stan Winston at the height of his powers.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
So,
anyways, guys, you ready to review the first Terminator?
Let's jump right in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before I get to that, let's do the plot summary for The Terminator according to IMDb. And I'm gonna read it as Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, no.
gosh. Oh no.
A human soldier is sent from 2029 to 1984 to stop an almost indestructible cybernetic organism from the future, sent from the same year, which has been programmed to execute a young woman whose unborn son is the key to humanity's future salvation.
Like a
I
good
understood.
neighbor, State Farm is
Yeah,
there.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
In the 21st century, a weapon will be invented like no other. This weapon will be powerful, versatile, and indestructible. It can't be reasoned with. It can't be bargained with. It will feel no pity, no remorse, no pain, no fear. It will have only one purpose: to return to the present and prevent the future. This weapon will be called the Terminator.
You're dead, honey.
I'm sorry, Arnold Schwarzenegger. We're butchering your voice.
Hey,
You have a
don't-
lovely voice.
Hey, you guys don't watch that. I might do a Sly Stallone impression.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
You do this movie called Terminator, got my friend Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's a really good movie.
I can't. I'm excited for you to start talking back to yourself as Sly and
Oh,
Stallone.
it's gonna happen.
I mean,
at some point.
in the Jack Slater universe, Stallone did play the Terminator.
Yeah,
So there you
he
go.
was on the poster in the
Mhm.
live action hero.
It's
Yeah.
one of his best roles.
Mhm. He was really good in it.
I don't know. You talking about Jack Slater?
Oh, Last Action Hero.
Action hero.
Oh yeah, I need a.
They go into a video store and
Oh
they
my
see
God,
a
yeah.
Terminator 2 poster, but it's
Yeah.
Sly as the
Yeah.
Terminator.
For as low budget as this movie is, it is impressive. The future scene,
Mhm.
like, this is on the
Mhm.
level of like Evil Dead, like Sam Raimi, and we talked about that a couple of years ago when we did when me and Eric
Mhm.
review for that, and it's just amazing.
Hey, I was in that too.
He was in that too. Yeah,
I said,
there was 3
that's
of
me
us in there.
Eric. Did I?
We did all the Evil Dead
me,
movies together.
Jackson,
Yeah.
and Eric reviewed
Yes.
Evil Dead. We talked about
Mhm.
how amazing
Mhm.
the camera angles were for a
Right.
low budget
Mhm.
movie, and a no-name
Mhm.
director by the name of Sam
Mhm.
Raimi.
I will say this. It wasn't this past time I watched this movie, but the time before is like they show their hand like at the very top, like as far as like there being like a future and there's robots running over it. You know what I mean? Like there's no like for the longest time, like Linda Hamilton's questioning whether any of this is real or not, and like as an audience, we already kind of know that like they're
Yeah.
telling the truth. You know what I mean? Which
I
is
mean, the text at the
interesting
beginning
choice.
tells us,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
exactly
that there's going to be a war between the machines and humans.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wonder how that would change the movie if that wasn't there. Like if we just jumped in and then you still see the lightning storm, time travel stuff, but you don't know exactly what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. I mean, they don't really tell you that much.
That's
Mm.
true.
Like for almost half the movie, it's
Yeah.
almost halfway through the movie when Kyle Reese explains to
Yeah, you don't know
Sarah
like,
Connor
Sarah's-
what's going on.
Right.
Yeah, we
Which
don't
is
know
in a
Sarah's
great
involved.
car chase scene, which is the best way to deliver like a butt ton of exposition. It's just
Right.
make it a chase scene.
Right. I will say I
Yeah.
love seeing a young Bill Paxton in this movie.
With
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
blue
Yeah, I got
spiky
that.
hair.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got those zigzags down his face on one side.
Well,
It's good.
fuck you,
Yeah.
asshole.
Mhm.
Yeah, one of only 2 actors had been killed by a predator, an alien, and a Terminator.
Who's the other one?
Lance Henriksen.
Mm-hmm.
Would he kill by the Terminator? Was Lance killed by that Terminator?
Lance Henriksen, he was killed in this movie by the
Yeah.
Terminator. He was
Oh, I
killed
don't
in
remember that.
Terminator
He's one of the
1.
cops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm an idiot.
No, you're good.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Bill Paxton's hopes and dream about making a shit ton of money about the discovery of Titanic also died too. So you can have
Mhm.
the list.
Yeah.
I
I
think
will
it's
say
cool
that scene
that
is,
like James Cameron sort of like made Bill Paxton a star.
yeah.
That's
It's like his
that's
buddy.
nice.
Yeah.
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 That scene is wild though, in the sense that the Terminator doesn't, the first kill in the movie isn't like a gun battle or anything. Like he punches
It's
through a
brutal.
guy. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
just absolutely
It's
destroys him.
but
Mhm.
it sets up the stakes of the movie
Yeah.
right away. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like you do not mess with this thing.
Oh yeah,
Don't
for
mess
sure.
with him.
Yeah.
But like I don't even think you realize he's a robot right away. Like I think it takes a
Mhm.
little while.
Yeah,
I think that's part of the car scene exposition.
Yeah.
yeah.
Where he
Well, that was
explains
one of the things they said in the documentary is because initially the concept was really more like T2. So I forget the name of the detective. But actually, so the younger white detective in the film, he was initially supposed to be the Terminator, and the idea was he was supposed to be able to come in and out, just kind of blend in.
okay.
And so Arnold actually read for Kyle Reese initially. And
Okay.
which they both thought was a terrible idea, but
Yeah.
Right.
because this is James Cameron's first movie, he's like, okay, well, I'll meet. But Arnold, of course, he reads the script and he's like, well, I want to be the fucking Terminator,
I want to be the
Right.
robot.
Terminator.
Who
Yeah,
doesn't- who wouldn't
Yeah.
want to be that
like
part?
Kyle Reese, he sounds like
Right?
he's supposed to be,
I mean,
want to be
that's
the
the name of
Terminator,
the movie. You know.
But yeah, so he does that, and so it definitely changes. That's one of the things that so kind of the whole
Mhm.
tone of the movie shifted because of that.
Mhm.
Because initially he's supposed to be just this kind of everyman that can slip in and out. You don't know where the danger is coming from.
Hmm.
But when Arnold comes along, they rewrite the tone of the script a little bit and how the movie is. And part of that is they want to showcase, that's part of why Arnold shows up and he's just so big and massive. Is that you don't even have to know there's that metal skeleton underneath
Mhm.
to be like, oh, this guy could just and there's a part of you that just believes, oh yeah, that could be really a man who just punches his fist.
Punches a hole through it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's a slight element of just
Yeah.
belief built in. I think if you watch
Mhm.
the original Terminator versus T2, I don't think in the original Terminator we're seeing quite the feats of strength we saw in the
Mhm.
second one.
Mm.
So
Right.
it wasn't like
s-
as obvious until parts of his
Right.
face start coming off.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
And some of that was probably budget too. Like they probably couldn't do physically some of the things that they
Mhm.
wanted.
Right.
They could do with like Terminator 2, which was like the most expensive movie ever made whenever
Right.
Terminator 2 came out. It was like $100 million movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the first. It might have been the first $100 million
Yeah.
budget movie.
Right. Well, and I
Uh,
think to Benny's point, saying that that Arnold's a better choice than Lance Henderson, is that like he has this Austrian accent, so he sounds very
Yeah.
great in
Mhm.
And it helps that the Terminator doesn't really talk that much in the first one.
Yeah.
Because
Right,
I mean,
right.
Arnold's English was a lot better in the mid 80s than it was in the 70s, but it was still
Yes.
improving.
Still, yes. He was
So,
getting there.
Mm.
He was
but
making improvements
he's
every movie.
he's absolutely incredible to behold,
Mhm.
His physical
Yeah.
presence just carries him through that part, and it's perfect. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now I love the aspect that he has to go and kill every woman named Sarah Connor
Mhm.
because
That's
Yeah.
pretty
Just to
cool.
make
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Just to
because
make
here's the
sure.
thing, he's a machine.
Right.
Mhm.
He didn't know Sarah Connor by face or personality or any
Mm-mm.
else. All he knows is the name, and I need to kill anybody ever named Sarah Connor. And then when the Sarah Connor that he's looking for is watching the news where it says everybody with the name Sarah Connor is getting killed today.
Yeah.
At the
Mhm.
restaurant.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're dead, honey. which
Yeah.
is
And there's only 3 in the phone book, by the way.
Yeah, there's
so
only
2 are
3.
down.
Only 3 in the phone book in all of like where are they in Los
LA.
Angeles?
Yeah, they're in
LA, yeah,
LA,
LA.
yeah.
Only 3 Sarah Connors. I don't know, maybe.
Well, and that's just one thing too. It's kind of funny, watching this movie again. I wasn't even born when the original Terminator came out. I wasn't born until '88. So,
Yeah.
but it's just, and I can remember those still the phone books, and you could look up people's addresses and stuff. I know my dad, remember, like if they looked like, how come our address isn't in here? Everyone else is like, well, I don't want people to know where we live. And it's definitely one of those things like. There wouldn't just be a book on every corner today with everyone's name and address and phone number. Like you can find it on the internet, but even the internet today compared to what it was, say, I think 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I think it was much easier to find people's phone numbers on the internet. Like, because like there was still the white pages and yellow pages online. It was pretty easy. Like today, it's a little more difficult. It can be done, but like sometimes like there's like paywall sites you can get to.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just like definitely, it's I think kind of playing on that fear of people having their information out there and not knowing necessarily what could come along. So there's definitely, technology in 1984 is really starting to emerge in a way that it hadn't. So a lot of the science fiction of the 50s and 60s is now starting to happen. Versus now I think we're seeing a lot of science fiction of the 80s is starting to happen to us now.
Sure.
So I mean I think there's probably some play on that too going on. I don't think they mentioned that in the documentary, but that's just kind of what I'm thinking.
Sure.
That's the thing
it's
about
any day now we're going to create these killer robots. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I first watched this movie, God, I'm fucking old, almost like 20 years ago for the first time, and I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna happen until like another 50 years. Like it's gonna get to that point, it's gonna be a while. No, almost 20 years later, we're just about pretty close to Terminator. It's fucking scary. I will say we're not to Terminator 2 yet, but I do like how the T-1000, all the grunt work is removed from finding every single person named John Connor. He just types in John Connor in the police scanner, and he just finds the one he's looking for.
Right. Well, he's also using a police scanner. Like he got lucky in the sense that he can just replicate anybody and become a policeman.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
One of the things I want to talk about too. So in the first Terminator, and this is actually one of the things that show Arnold does kind of know some acting stuff, and they were really mindful of this. So if you're paying attention, when he's looking, his eyes move first, and then his head moves. So it's very robotic. He moves very stiff. There's a movement to him that gives away his roboticness.
Sure.
And so when we get to Terminator 2, and I'm trying to look when I'm watching this last night for the half I did get to watch. I'm really paying close attention. Like I'm pretending that I'm doing it like I do today, where if there's a movie I want to see, I don't watch any of the trailers. So I like know as little as possible. So I'm trying to imagine if I'm watching T2 for the first time. I've seen T1. I know that Arnold shows up. He's, he was the bad guy in the first one. He's kind of doing a lot of the same shit this time. And then our other guy shows up. He's much more built like Kyle Reese. He's much better, at human interaction. He seems very, very human versus Arnold in T1 and T2. Like the way he moves, the way he interacts, the way he sees the world, it's very robotic. It's very inhuman. And so that's like, that would have been kind of the switch, that you might not have seen coming.
Yeah.
Like I said, I wasn't around when the first one came out. I mean, this was when T2 first came out. So I don't know. I haven't watched the trailers because why am I going to watch a trailer that's as old as I am?
Here's the thing, I think.
And it's.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, and it also goes back to what you were saying about like the original idea for the Terminator was he's the everyman, he's anybody, and that the T-1000 literally is anybody and can be anybody.
Yeah. I think that's what makes the two characters of the villains different between T1 and T2. T1, he could be the everyman. He can change his voice, but he can't say stuff. He can only do it like over the phone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where the T-1000 he can do it anytime he wants. So that's pretty interesting. Going back to your point with the eye thing, that's the thing that I think shocked a lot of people about Arnold back in the day was like, and not so much now, but like he's a really smart guy. Like even back then,
Mhm.
Oh yeah, he
Yeah.
is.
I think
He
that is
is
one of the things.
super smart guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hell, he became the governor of California for several years. Now, whether or not you agree with his politics or not, but he seems
Yeah.
to know how to present himself in a way.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
that
Sure,
looks
sure.
appealing
he's
to-
kind of the person that can do anything. Did anybody watch the documentary on Netflix about him?
No, I need to.
Mm,
It's
what was it called?
really, it's really,
Oh
it's
yeah,
just
they
called
made
Arnold.
yeah, you
It's
know,
really
I have not.
interesting.
I've seen parts of it because they would play it at my gym, so I've seen like snippets. But it's
Yeah.
one of the things.
Awesome.
I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen a good chunk of Pumping Iron.
Yeah.
Oh God. Oh.
Pumping Iron's good. Pumping Iron's
I've never
good.
seen it.
It's fun. Yeah.
That
It's
one-
a-
that one-
It's him and
that
Lou
one moment.
Ferrigno. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Arnold that is at his peak, and Lou Ferrigno is just like up and coming.
Mhm.
And that's actually Arnold was actually they wanted him to play actually the Hulk in the TV series originally, but he didn't want to
Yeah.
do it.
Well, what I
did.
read is that the reason they didn't cast him is because Lou Ferrigno was taller. They wanted
Mm.
somebody taller.
That makes Lou Ferrigno is fucking monstrously
He's
huge.
Yeah.
right?
enormous. Yeah.
You know,
I didn't know that about Arnold. I knew they also was considering the guy that played Jaws in the James Bond movie, the big tall guy with the gold teeth.
Okay.
yeah, that would be
Richard Kale.
Richard Kyle. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, but they thought he was too tall and not bulky enough.
Mm.
But yeah,
Like
going back to
300 pounds. Yeah.
that Pumpy Niner documentary, I never thought I would want to know how Pumping Iron makes Arnold feel.
Mm.
No.
There is that famous quote
I have
about
like-
I have
It's
seen
like
that.
honey.
They showed that in the documentary about him. They showed
Yeah.
that clip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is a family podcast, Drew.
I think the scariest part to me in this movie is when Kyle has
Mhm.
the first flashback of him and his buddy
Mhm.
fighting off that
Mhm.
that Terminator like
Yeah, the hunter killer.
dude,
Yeah.
that is freaking scary, dude. That is
Yeah, the HK
yeah.
blast her to
I had
nothing.
forgotten how many like flashbacks, flash forwards. I don't know
Yeah.
what you would
Yeah.
call it. Flashback to the future. I had
Yes.
forgotten how much you actually saw of the future in this movie.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't remember there being any of that, but when I
Yeah.
watched it, I was very surprised. I want to
Yeah,
talk about
it's-
Kyle Reese a little bit and
Oh, yeah,
Michael Bean
absolutely.
Yeah.
specifically. I always felt like he should have had a better career. I mean, he had a pretty good
100%.
career for a while,
Mhm.
and then he just like in the early '90s just kind of falls off the map.
Yeah.
You know, after
The last thing I remember
Tombstone,
seeing
can't
him
think
in-
of anything big after
The
he
Rock.
did After
The Rock.
oh, that's
Yeah,
right,
he
he
was
is
The
in
Rock.
in
Yeah,
an
I
episode of The
forgot he was in
Mandalorian.
that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was in the episode of The Mandalorian where they introduced Ahsoka.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
he was in
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Real quick story. At the Comic Con that I met Kevin Conroy in back in 2019, I bought a Terminator poster, like the first one,
Mhm. Mhm.
and Michael Biehn was there, and I was so tempted to go into his line, but his line was so long, I was tired.
Yeah,
of
I
his
bet.
line. I
Yeah.
could have done it.
Yeah.
I could have done it.
But it seemed
There'll be
like he
another
was going to
time.
be
He's still
like
out
the
there.
guy for a while, you
Yeah.
know, because he did
Yeah.
this movie, then he had Aliens a couple years
Mhm.
later, and
Yeah,
like,
this.
yeah,
Well,
But,
when I took my mom
I
to
don't
go
know.
see The Abyss for her birthday last year when they did the re-release, that was a
Mhm.
pleasant surprise for me. Like, I'm like, oh, Kyle Reese, Michael Biehn, I love that
Mhm.
guy.
Oh yeah. No, Cameron used him a lot, just like Bill
Bill Paxton,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, actually,
I
I've
don't
been
know. I
wanting to
really
watch that
like
again.
Kyle Reese.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like he's like the most dynamic character ever, but he's a very effective, like cool hero, you know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, much
with a
like,
sensitive side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very
Much like-
sensitive.
much like this movie, I learned to appreciate Kyle Reese because, like, I was all about Arnold because Arnold was
Right.
my guy,
He's-
and he's
sure.
still my
He's the
guy.
draw.
Right.
Going back to how he was a sensitive kind of character,
Yeah.
he let Sarah go on top during the sex scene. So I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
normal of them. to do.
Let her on top.
I had forgotten the
God's sake.
part where it was
Actually, that
where
was
he-
one thing I did want to just make note of. Just it was actually a really good, not just like from a pervy standpoint, but just like from the way that sex scene was shot. It was
Yeah.
really good. Like it was
Mm.
both like tasteful and like kind of realistic. Like it didn't
yeah.
like obviously like
Mm.
there was thought put into it. Like
Well,
Sure.
it
it
wasn't
was-
gratuitous either. It was part of the movie.
yeah.
Part of the
So
story.
I thought they did a really good job on that.
I struggle a little bit to assume that they would jump in bed right away together, but I mean, I guess it's been a few days. They've been through some dramatic experiences.
Oh, they definitely
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, I just need to love some steam.
Mm.
Well, plus it comes down to like, he has like one of the best lines where I can't remember exactly what he says, but it's something like I came all the way across time just for you,
Just
you
for
know.
you, yeah.
Extremely romantic.
The leader
And
of the
now we
future.
get to the weirdest aspect of this movie.
Mhm.
Yeah. The wibbly wobbly timey wimey thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I
That
think
in order. Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead,
Chuck
Jackson.
Palahniuk actually wrote a whole book with a similar premise where a guy like goes back in time and he's his own father.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Yeah.
called, what is it called? Rant? I think that's the
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. There's an entire Futurama episode that's based on that where he goes
Oh,
back
yeah,
and becomes his
Fry.
own like
He's
Fry
like his
becomes
own grandpa. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
guess like
I'm my own grandpa.
I guess Kyle can never really die, like ever, because in Salvation, like he's played by Anton Yelchin, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I guess he just
Oh
Really
yeah, I
think
guess
it's true.
so.
yeah, I guess his
I
mom
mean-
and dad are gonna hook up at some point.
Kyle Reese's like lifeline goes in kind of a circle.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
he's
Yeah.
born, he goes back in time, he dies, and then some years later he is born.
He's born again. Yes.
It's very strange.
What a
Now-
way! What a way to exist.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about my two couple of favorite foreshadowing moments again.
Mm.
Love when Sarah is trying to find her lizard and she
Mhm.
says, "Find your
Mhm.
mother." When she finds him, it hints at her relationship with John. I thought that was
Yeah, I've never really picked that up. Yeah.
And then the police call Sarah while she's at the club to warn her. It goes to voicemail, and her roommate's voice is saying, "You're talking to Messine. Messines need love too." I do love the part when Sarah is going to the club and she walks past Kyle, and then Kyle follows her. That was some pretty good
hmm
suspense right there, because
Mhm.
you don't necessarily know if he's after her or.
Oh sure, yeah. No, all that
Hmm.
tech noir stuff is really good at like building tension because you are kind of
Yeah.
like one of these guys is clearly a murderer. He's shot many Sarah Connors and shot the gun store owner and everything.
Yeah.
But the other guy is like, we don't know exactly who he is. We don't get a beat on him. He stole some homeless guy's pants in an alley,
Yeah.
but he
Yeah.
seems okay. He seems
He's super
okay.
sketch, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You're
Well, and
like, which
that's-
one do I trust?
Yeah.
So one of the things I did want to bring up, so in the doc, one of the things I talked about is this scene in particular with the time
Mm.
dilation. That
Mm.
was a very intentional thing.
Mhm.
And this will come back in T2 actually. So it kind of goes back to the fever dream that James Cameron had, it's kind of like
Mhm.
this nightmare type deal. So actually, when Sarah is in a nightmare state, time slows down for her. There's a time
Oh,
dilation
yeah.
aspect of it,
Mhm.
and that will keep happening throughout the movie. So that was just something, and that was actually another thing, because the studio had wanted to film it more during the day for budgeting reasons, and
Right.
James Cameron was very much like, I think it'll really be better at night because like it's more like nightmarish,
Right.
Yeah.
and that was as
Yeah,
the
yeah.
movie goes on, it just becomes more and more of a nightmare.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
which I think was really
Yeah, that's why I
was
like
brilliant.
this movie. That's why I learned to appreciate it. It's just ready.
John Connor very famously is on that motorcycle for the first half
Mhm.
of T2. But if we actually go back
Mhm.
to T1, Sarah's actually running around on a moped.
She's on the
And-
moped, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so a big part of that whole intro to Sarah Connor in T1 is just to show that she is just like a very, very normal all-American girl. There's
Right.
nothing
Mhm.
special about her.
Yeah, she's a
little bit carefree.
waitress.
Yeah.
She's not even a
Um,
good waitress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she spills that coffee all over. Yeah.
The movie starts out and she is so easily frightened and frazzled. Man, we know what she
Mhm.
becomes because we've all seen T2. But
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
when the movie starts, and James Cameron did say this too, like he drew a lot of inspiration from Ripley and Alien. And just
Mhm.
like he wanted this, Sarah was our focus. She was our lead. And that's one of the things that's always bothered me is like, we haven't had strong female characters. I'm like, we had Ripley, we had Sarah Connor. Granted, we probably
Mhm.
should have had more back then. But like
Yeah.
these are two women. They definitely did not start out the hero.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They were very scared, but by the end of their respective films, they had grown into the hero, so I mean it's just I think
Rose to the
that
occasion.
was
Yeah.
really, like I think that was really good. And that's one of the things, I still love it actually when I see like a really strong female character that they've done a good
Mhm.
job on. Like, so like you're watching The Mandalorian, and in the finale of season 2, like it's all women just storming that Imperial ship. And I didn't even realize until halfway through, because a lot of times they do so much like just draw like, oh, look at all these, but like they haven't
Sure.
built them up, like they're not like doing anything. Versus we see Sarah and she starts out as so frail and pitiful, but like
Mhm.
as we watch her journey, like she's clearly growing, she's clearly coming into it, and by the end of the
Mhm.
film, it's her that is really the strength of the film. And it's not Kyle anymore. She has become a leader by the end of Terminator 1. She's become this
Yeah.
amazing figure. I
Mhm.
love
I mean,
that.
when she says to Kyle, she's like, "On your feet, soldier." It's just like,
Yeah.
that's a
yeah.
moment right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I fucking love that. Like, well, because initially too, it's almost it's so forced. Like she says it, and it's almost like she doesn't really believe it, right? She's saying it because she knows it's the right thing to say. She's trying to like imitate being like a sergeant or just some sort of authority.
Mhm.
On your feet, soldier. But then like she keeps going and she finds her voice, right? And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, she's not impersonating an authority. She's not impersonating someone who's strong. She is becoming strong because she's
Mhm.
making these decisions, and she's deciding, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not just gonna lie down and die. I'm
Mhm.
gonna fight. So I think we need more filmmakers like James Cameron that are bringing in these really strong, well thought out,
Right.
female roles that everyone can root for, and
Mhm.
that it's not just
Mhm.
like playing to this whole idea of like support women for the sake of supporting women, but just like
Right.
really showing that women are actually strong and capable in a believable way,
Yeah,
which
well,
Sarah
Well, and
Connor is.
Well, I also,
and
oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say it also comes down to just writing good characters,
Yeah.
Right.
people
Yeah.
with arcs and things like that. Like
Right.
it's yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also a lot of minorities are gaining a lot of voices, and especially the horror field. Like my top 3 favorite horror movies is The Babadook, directed by a woman, and she kind of had that perspective.
Mhm.
If you ever seen The Babadook, because it's about a mom and her relationship with her son, and then they're trying to, going up against this character not called a Babadook, and it's all about grief. Like she would know something about motherhood, and like like, and he brings a gentleness to it. Jordan Peele, he's a black director, and he
Yeah.
casts black people, who did not have a lot of agency in the horror realm in all 3 of his movies, and he probably did it in his 4th movie that's coming out at some point.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
I'm
does
so
such a
excited
phenomenal
for
job,
another
too.
Jordan
Yeah.
Peele movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That guy's just killing it.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
3 for
and
3. Hopefully he's 4 for 4.
well, then you've got Bryce Dallas Howard too. She's really coming up as a director. Her
yeah,
work
for
on
sure.
Star Wars has been
Oh, yeah.
phenomenal. I've really enjoyed seeing that. And it's one of those things, again, there's that, kind of asshole part of my brain that's like, well, so what? It's a woman. But it's also like,
Yeah, but you also gotta think about
you
it.
also have to be like, okay, yes, like we do have to support these voices, and especially when they're good ones.
Yeah,
When
we
when they come
also
along, they do such a phenomenal job.
yeah, we also got to think about it from the perspective of for decades we always been praising cis white men, and now that's not necessarily bad. Because I'm actually reading a book right now called "Woman from the Black Lagoon" about this artist named Millicent Patrick, and she's actually designed the Gillman for Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Universal monster movie. And the book was kind of explaining, well, like for years, like like we keep having all these makeup and effect artists. They were male, like Rob Bottin and Jack Pierce and Wick Baker and Tom Savini. They're all great. Like they all contributed to something to horror. But where the ladies at? You know what I mean? Like Menacing Patrick.
I mean, women have been writing historically. Women were the writers in like old Hollywood. They were the ones in those
the
like,
editors
rooms churning
too.
out all, and the editors for sure.
Yeah, Patton Oswalt has a whole bit about that where he's like, every movie you like was probably directed by a man, but it was edited by a woman. So the reason you like it, the reason you like it is because the woman took over and made it good.
The whole reason why the sour scene in Psycho is so good because Patricia or not Arquette, Patricia Hitchcock, Albert Hitchcock's wife.
She was
right behind him.
working with him every day on those. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Star Wars is a perfect
Scorsese, like too, almost all his
Marshall
movies.
Lucas. I just saw a video about her.
Yeah, there was like an hour-long documentary about that. Like when you hear about the original way that Star Wars was cut, and
sounds pretty bad.
It sounds really bad. So she comes in, it's like, this is garbage.
Well, I'm not even
throughout. Like I think the first 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes was like Luke messing around with his friends on Tatooine. He's like, no one cares. Like, get to the space wizard.
On that video I walked about Marshall.
Did I wrong?
About Marshall Lucas, I literally, like in a joking way, typed in kind of a serious way too, in the comments. I'm like, wait, a Star Wars video in the modern day that's not anti-woke? That's all I see. It's fucking stupid. I'm tired of the whole woke, anti-woke stuff. It's ridiculous.
And that's kind of actually how, I mean, to kind of tie it back into Terminator, that's kind of how Terminator comes along. Because Gail, I think it's Gail Ann Hurd is the producer, right? I think it's her name. I might be messing it up. But
it is Gail Ann Hurd.
She had met James Cameron when he was doing his visual effects stuff. And she was like, I really like this guy. Let me know when you want to do, I will produce it. She wanted him to produce it. So without Gail Ann Hurd, without a woman, we don't have Terminator. Okay.
Well, I also think you always notice how female cops, they look more serious than male cops because they probably got to be taken
probably
more
have
serious.
to.
Yeah,
because of their gender.
I mean, I guess kind of going back to the B movie aspect of it all. Like, I mean, there's just so many unknowns in that first Terminator movie. I mean, Arnold is again, he is really the draw here. You've got Arnold looking every bit the role of the Terminator on that poster, and it's just everyone else is like, who are these people? And but then I think they prove that these are people we should care about. They're very talented actors, very talented writers and directors. Just everything came together to make something that I mean it's still culturally relevant. We're still making Terminator movies, and it's been it's been 40 years. So it's staying power.
And it's nice, like because like you were saying, like Arnold is sort of like your movie star draw. He's on the poster. His name is really above the title. But it's like nice having these other characters who aren't really big names for this first one. It makes it feel more lived in. It doesn't feel as like we cast Tom Cruise as Kyle Reese. You know what I mean? I don't know. It feels more down to earth.
You're Taiju from the Terminator.
And there's
he does a lot of running.
Almost, I want to say voyeuristic, but there's like kind of when you're watching T1, it feels very much like there's not like a lot of wides or anything. Like it's very close. Like everything is happening very close. Like you're kind of put in it, and there's not a lot of comedy. There's not a lot of camp. Like the movie throughout is very, very tense. It's very gritty. There's a lot happening, and
it's very lean. That's the word that kept coming to mind. And I just want to talk a little bit about, like, I just love the way this first movie is shot. A lot of 80s action movies, they have like, I mean, it's indicative of like Stallone and Schwarzenegger and all those guys. They have like big buff guys shooting guns. but there's
Mhm.
not a lot of real visual style to them. This one has it, John McTiernan, when he comes about doing Predator and Die Hard and stuff, like he
Yeah,
brings
that-
some of it
love
in.
Predator,
But like if
Die
you watch
Hard.
something like, I don't know, Rambo 2 or
Commando.
whatever, it's very visually flat and boring.
Yeah, well, I
but
think-
People
Cameron
saying lines
comes roaring out of the gate, and
Yeah,
he's just
well,
like
I think,
awesome movement and everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
well, I
the
think
lighting.
Ridley Scott's Blade Runner had a lot to do with that kind of like sci-fi.
Yeah, that and Alien, both. Yeah.
Now we cannot talk about this movie without talking about the scene that made Terminator famous. I'll be back.
I'll be back.
Yeah, that is iconic. Like one of the greatest movie lines of all time. And Arnold didn't want to say "I'll be back" because he had a hard time with "all." He wanted to say "I will be back." But James Cameron was like, "No, you're a robot. You're a cyborg. Like you have to say it the most efficient way you can say it, which is "I'll be back," not "I will be back."
Yeah. No, I mean it's the line that is bigger than this movie itself. Like it is like ingrained in the popular culture, especially in like the 90s and like 2000 early 2000s. Like
oh yeah,
it was everywhere.
Right.
Well,
and what a way of coming back when he finally
does
right. And that's one of the things too.
Drives that car straight to the front of it.
So apparently that was a laugh point in the first movie. So again, I'm watching the documentary.
It's pretty funny.
And it was unintentional though. And he didn't intend it for a laugh, but it's just like the audience was able to into it. When this guy who's just been running around murdering everyone all movie says, "I'll be back." You don't know exactly how he's coming back, but it's not going to be good.
He's going to show up, kill a lot of people.
Killing people. I love the part when he's in the gun shop looking for guns, and Dick Miller, the character actor, is the the gun store owner. He's going through. He's like, "Uzi 9mm."
Yeah.
Rifle, and he just straight up shoot him.
I'm gonna close it. I'm gonna close up shop early today.
So specifically, a phased plasma rifle in the 40-watt range. I wrote that.
You really know your guns.
So my dad, one of his personality quirks is whenever we're watching something and somebody pulls out a gun, he says what type of gun it is.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It just
no matter
like
what we're watching, if somebody pulls out a gun, he will say the make and model of the gun.
That sounds like a good guy.
But anyway, is there anything else? If there's not anything else you want to say about this movie, you ready to get the favorite part and least favorite part?
Let me take a look at my notes real quick. Actually, there's one thing I did want to talk about. So as during the car scene when they crash, the Terminator just runs off. And I'm looking through my notes and like, why does he run off? Like, so I mean, like, it's like, okay, are there too many cops? But then of course he comes back and storms the police building. So like I'm unsure as to why he left at that point. Like it just that to me is probably the biggest plot hole in the whole movie. In a movie filled with fucking time travel, the biggest plot hole is why does the robot leave during the crash?
Right. I mean, I would say the argument I think would be that he was injured and he needed to reassess because he had to cut his own eye out after that, right? In that after that scene.
I mean, he got his skin burned off
when he
too.
does
Like,
that.
yeah. So that's actually one thing I will say. That's one thing I have to remind myself. It's the 80s.
Yeah.
All this shit's new. Just how awful that animatronic Arnold looks. It is.
Yeah, especially that cut
so
to
bad.
especially that cut to like the live Arnold when he's looking in the mirror. Yeah.
And that's the thing because like when they do the scene later where they just put the makeup on Arnold, when he's in the truck, how much better that looked.
Oh yeah.
Like and I'm gonna guess it's just that probably took an insane amount of time in the chair.
Sure.
So that's probably why
it's not as deep. It's surface level, so it's just like a prosthetic. Like they build out part of his face a little bit and then put that in. This one was like deeper, and then like you've got the eye that can like servo in and out.
Is
Yeah.
the endoskeleton at the very end, I thought that looked spectacular. That is really good because it's kind of mechanical and kind of slow, like a robot would be.
Yeah.
It depends
You
on
talk
which
about like the stop motion
which one.
Yeah.
The stop motion
Yeah.
one or the actual full size one. So the stop motion one, that's one of those things.
It's both.
You know, looking back, that hasn't aged as well. But
Yeah.
I think the full size mechanical one. I mean, I'm looking at that like that is still so
It's
Still works,
very
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's very intimidating.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It
Like-
just always makes me think of the old title sequence for this show, because the first shot was always
Mhm. Mhm.
the mechanical robot. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
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 Dun,
It changed it.
dun, dun, dun.
Yes, that is
Now,
how
one
it goes.
thing I also noticed, Arnold's Terminator, you know, because RoboCop comes around within a few years of this.
Sure.
And this is
87.
not
Yeah,
RoboCop.
it was like 3 years.
So RoboCop, I mean, he just shoots and kills everything on the first shot, right? I mean, like, I mean, in theory, like it actually, like, they're just plugging everywhere. But the Terminator, he's not RoboCop. There's like some error to it, you know. You know, and some of my notes don't entirely make sense, so I'm trying to look at it. Okay, now I see it. But it's like, yeah, like he's not just like popping off a single shot and murking everyone on the first shot with like headshots. Like there's an element, you know, clearly, and we could extrapolate. We just say, oh, maybe it's the 80s, and maybe don't think too hard. But like they're trying to make an infiltration unit, and you know now we have robots that can do so many cool things with auto aim and stuff. Like they are so crazy accurate. The kind of things we do now, maybe they just didn't envision it yet, but like when you see Arnold as a Terminator, he's not RoboCop. He's not just like immediately cranking everything perfectly, but there is definitely like a little bit of error in there. And I'm wondering if that's just kind of like part of the whole infiltration, because he is an infiltration unit. That's his whole, I mean, as much as someone that looks like Arnold can like blend in, you know,
Right.
and that is actually one more thing I did want to point out is during the sequence when they're in the human alcove, you know, and it's kind of interesting, you know, because there are different Terminator models. Clearly, they have different exoskins, right? You know, and so it seems like Arnold is probably, this Terminator is probably supposed to be kind of like a one and done, but again, he is the draw. So when we come back to Terminator 2, you can't have T2 without Arnold, and it kind of, I think, sets that up. But that was one thing I did notice. And my circular reasoning is happening right now, so bear with me. But in that scene, it was almost like they couldn't. So we're talking about the visual style of the future. It was almost like they couldn't decide if that Terminator that storms the human base is that a regular firearm with a lead propulsion type thing? Is it shooting projectile, or is it a plasma weapon? It seems to be both at the same time.
Right.
I don't know if anyone else noticed that.
I certainly didn't.
I didn't.
That was one thing that kind of bugged me. I mean, because they also never resolved like how they dealt with it. Because Kyle Reese is in that scenario. It seems to be killing everyone. And like, okay, so how does he get out? How they deal with this Terminator? Were they able to kill it? Were they not? Maybe they just didn't address it because they didn't want to definitively say, oh yeah, these things can be destroyed. So they're saving that for the finale. Although one thing, and to pull it back to another thing, so when we're talking about, again, the horrible animatronic, but so the landlord's like knocking at the door, and he's like, you know, what, did something die in there? I forget what he says exactly. But so that's one thing. So he is a cybernetic organism, which I'm not sure if that term is used during T1 or if it just comes up during T2. But it is. We do know it's living flesh over a metal endoskeleton. Is that flesh actually rotting? Because it seems like he really still, there's like flies all over him.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing. Like it wasn't directly addressed, but it does seem to be like,
I think it is. I think it's rotting
rotting
off of him because he's gotten. and that's why the landlord says that it's 100% rotting at that point. Like it can't heal itself. Like it's living flesh on top of it, but once it gets injured, there's no way to heal it. So then it starts dying,
Right.
and that's why he's this like he's almost a one and done. Like they send him back in time, he's not gonna make it. They know that like he's gonna sustain injuries, and it's all just gonna be downhill from there. But like yeah, he just has one job to do, and as long as he can do that job, which he can't because
Because Sarah Connor's
Linda
badass.
Hamilton. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Sarah Connor's badass. Yeah,
Or
exactly.
she becomes a badass. We'll
She
say
becomes,
Right.
and
Yeah.
she becomes. So that's the thing is like, is Sarah Connor a badass from the get go, or does she become one because of the Terminator? And then if that's the case, then is her future set because of something? Like, is her present set because of something from the future? You know what I
my
mean? Like,
goodness.
it's just like
You're gonna give me a
then you
headache.
start
that.
exactly.
I think one thing they say in T2 is it probably came up in T1 too, but like the future is not. I forget the exact word, but the future is not set.
Yeah, it
It's
comes
not
up in
destined.
T1 because Kyle Reese says he comes from one possible future.
Yeah, one possible future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things
Fate we
always when you
make.
deal with time travel
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
Time travel movies it's always kind of tricky to deal with that. Is how do you deal with the whole space time continuum? And it kind of goes into multiverse theory, like, okay, well, there's multiple different outcomes. So Kyle, it kind of goes. It's almost like Avengers Endgame. He is in one possible future, and he has stuck himself back into almost like a branch that's happening.
Right.
So he's put himself at this branching point, and as long as he can keep Sarah Connor from being killed, there are still possible branches. If Sarah Connor is killed, that whole limb is cut off.
Right.
Yeah.
Which of course like leads to other things, but maybe. And that's one of the things where time travel movies are like super difficult like that.
It's
so
just like
it's-
arguing in quicksand. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things like it's just take it at face value and leave it, because if you think too much about any time travel movie, none of them work.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, it just kind of like sucks the fun out. I think there was one other thing I did want to talk about. Is how does Arnold's Terminator in T1 do the voice imitations? Because if you're paying like quick attention, because they're going to the cabin, and that was actually one of the things too, because I'm taking my notes, like, how does he fucking know where to find her all these times? And it's just like detective work. The Terminator is back there. He's literally doing detective work. But here's like one more little hole. When he finds Sarah Connor's mother, the door's all shot in, busted down. It's obviously killed her pretty quickly, probably.
Sure.
Maybe not. But he is doing such a spot-on impersonation of Sarah Connor's mother that Sarah Connor tells the Terminator exactly where she's at. I'm kind of curious, how does he do that? Did he maybe keep her alive long enough to get her mannerism down, or like what is
I
that
think
mechanism?
he's probably constantly recording, and like when going back to the other lady who answered the door earlier when he shot her in the back, because she answered and says like Sarah Connor, she's like yes. So he's just picking up speech patterns, and then probably like it's like AI nowadays. You can just replicate anyone's speech pattern almost,
Right.
with
Right,
like
well,
with like enough
do
information.
that.
So it's
I
just
feel like you have to do that because
right.
If it's in the bind, but yeah, it's interesting.
Maybe he did keep her alive. Maybe he did torture her a little bit. Like, tell me what your daughter is. Like punched her or something. I don't know. I don't know what a Terminator does to like interrogate a person, but
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of interrogation happening with Terminators.
no, yeah. He's
But,
like stomping toes and
Anyways, guys, you ready to get the favorite part and least favorite part? And also,
yes.
Actually, what's your favorite part and your least favorite part about this movie?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, favorite part, huh? That's tough. I didn't really think about it that much. I think it's got to be though the skeletal Terminator at the end.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I even kind of like the stop motion parts of it. I mean, it's a little silly looking, but not to where it ruined the movie for me. Plus, I like that like you have actual Michael Biehn interacting with stop motion Terminator, and it looks pretty seamless. Like they hit each other and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's
I'm
it's
sure
just
that
a
was
cool
not
design.
easy to accomplish.
Right.
So.
And then your least favorite part.
Least favorite part. I feel like it sort of drags a little bit in the third act, like right before you get to the factory and everything. Like some of the stuff where it's just sort of a chase. I don't know. It's not that It's not that bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Eric? Eric, what is your favorite part and your least favorite part?
My favorite part is a no eyebrows Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That is a
which
weird
is probably
choice.
the most unsettling. Like once he gets his eyebrows burned off, like I love all that stuff. Like it is very unsettling to me. Like even watching it now.
That's pretty
I had to
interesting.
rewind that a couple times. Like, when the fuck did he lose his eyebrows?
Yeah, well, wait, when did it? What is happening to his head? Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. That's
And then what is your
100% my favorite part. Least favorite part. Or wait, my favorite part. No, least favorite part.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think you lose a little bit of the mystery by setting up that there is like a war in the future.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like at the very top.
Right.
If you lost that, I don't think you lose anything else from the movie.
Yeah.
To me, I think it would retain a little more mystery. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's like the beginning of what's it, Dark City? It's like the Alex Pyros movie from like 98 that came out right before The Matrix. Like they made them tack on this like beginning where they're like explaining all
Explain
these like
what is actually going on.
right. Yeah. And so it's just
Yeah.
like you don't need it. Like we're audiences
Or
are
like
stupid. We'll figure
the
it out.
Donnie
Yeah.
Darko director's cut where they explained everything that's
Exactly.
happening.
Yeah.
I've never
Right.
actually seen the original Donnie Darko cut. I'm curious because I've heard it's actually way better.
It's really good.
I love the
So-
original.
It's a really super cool movie. Yeah.
Mhm.
I've only seen the director's cut where they like walk you through step by step.
You should
Yeah.
watch the original. Watch the original one.
All right. What about
It's
you?
a great
Benny?
movie. It was a great movie to discover. Yeah. Sorry. Go
What
ahead.
about you, Benny? What is your favorite part and your least favorite part?
I think, I mean, I just really love at the end where Linda Hamilton is like, "You're Terminator, fucker."
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that is, I think, phenomenal. I mean, there's a lot of good things. Like again, you know, there's a lot of exposition, but the beginning exposition I think bugged a little bit because it's like, well, how come they showed text on the screen instead of just like doing a narration or something? Probably just to say something earlier. Why does the Terminator leave after the crash? I think it's just like, why? You guys ever
He
watch
doesn't.
like Pitch Meeting?
Yeah, I love
Oh.
Pitch Meeting.
How come he leaves during the car chase? So the movie can keep happening, you know?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Or,
Yeah.
sir, I'm gonna need you to get all the way up my back about that. Oh, let me
Yeah.
get off of that thing. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, that's pretty
That's
funny.
exactly what it is.
But anyway, my favorite part would have to be Sarah's model or message to John at the end when she basically says, "Did I tell you about your father? Boy, that's a tough one. It would affect your decision to send him back, knowing that he is your father."
Mm.
Well, will it affect your decision to send him back, knowing that he's your father? I messed that up. If you don't send Kyle, you never can be. God, person can go crazy thinking about this. I suppose I will tell you. I own that. Maybe it will help if you know in a few hours that we had together, we loved a lifetime's worth. That is so beautiful. That
It
is,
really is.
yeah, it's haunting, man. It really is. As far as least favorite part goes, nothing. I can't think of anything I don't like about this movie.
Huh. Okay. All right.
Except for me, like the effects, but like I mean, it was the voodoo, so I can't.
Yeah. No, I mean some of it doesn't quite hold up as well, but you know, it's you give some things a pass.
Anyways, you ready to get to ratings? And I'll start with you, Jackson. So we'll doing our new rating system. Where we do the filmmaking out of 5, and then theme, and then we'll add those two scores together to overall.
Okay.
So what is your filmmaking rating for
Filmmaking, it's got to be like 4.5. Like
which one do
very
you want
high quality.
You gotta pick one, Jackson. 4.
I'll go with 4. I'll go with 4.5. I think it's like for the kind of movie it is. It's like executed at a very high level.
Yeah.
4.5 sounds good. What about your theme rating?
It's only like a 2.5. I don't think this movie goes very deep, but it's a lot of fun to watch.
You give it an overall score of 7.
That's about right.
Yeah,
that's good.
All right, what about you, Eric? What is your filmmaking score?
I mean, I think for the time and the money they spent on this movie, I think it's pretty good. I'd say it's probably about 3.5.
Okay.
And then I would say probably its theme is a little. I would rank it just a little higher than Jackson. I would say probably a 3. So I think we're at like 6.5,
Yeah,
six
I
and a
mean,
half, somewhere in there.
yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good movie. And like a 6.5 is nothing to shake a stick at. It's wonderful. It's a good. It's a great time. Great way to spend an hour and 40 minutes.
Mm. Right.
There are
What
worse
about
movies
you?
out there.
What about you, Biddy?
It's above
What
average.
is your score?
So I think, yeah, for me, it's going to be a 4.5 as well. So we have to also consider, like, yeah, I mean, if this was like a big budget blockbuster at the time, I'd rate it lower. But we have to remember, again, this is a directorial debut. This is like, I think, if Galen heard, is this her first big producing credit?
It might be.
But like it's Linda Hamilton's big break. It's Michael Bihn's really big break.
Mhm.
I mean, there's just so much happening. This brand new. It is a B movie, and then I'm gonna probably say on story, yeah. I mean, like I don't. And if I'd had more time to watch some of these documentaries, maybe I could say a little bit more about it. I do think there are, some themes of like strong and powerful women. I think there are themes of, nightmares and fears of technology that are probably explored a little bit more, I think, in T2. I would say 3.5 in that range.
Right, which
So
one do you want to
I'm gonna
go
say
with?
for theme, probably overall, it's 3. I think it's really just meant more to be enjoyed than to be poured
It's
over.
a
and
visceral
thought about.
ride.
Yeah. I'm gonna say, the theme's 3.5. The overall filmmaking 4.5. So I guess we're giving it like an 8.
Yeah, well, actually, let me get to my rating real quick. So I did filmmaking for, I think for the time, there's some really cool stuff in there, especially the future scenes. I love the style of it. Like the kind of tech noir kind of thing. Theme, I'm gonna be the outlier. I'm gonna say 5. I think for this type of movie, there's some pretty powerful themes in the movie. Like a lot of things that it talks about like the future, and you're just kind of like this average person and you get thrust into this crazy world, and it's really a reverse or a transit Cinderella story if you think about it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, because he didn't live a life of glitz and glamour. She lived a life of paranoia. So that gives my overall rating of a 9. So averaging that out, the official for Sci-Fi and Beyond rating for James Cameron's original Terminator is going to be 7.5.
That's a pretty good rating.
I like
That's a pretty
that.
good rating for this movie. Yeah.
Now, you ready for Terminator 2, the big one?
T2 Judgment
Yeah.
Day.
So the plot summary, according to IMDb, for Terminator 2 Judgment Day is like, I need to bring in another special guest. Arnold! Hey, Arnold! What did you want, Drew? Yeah, I just need you to read this plot summary for Terminator 2, my favorite movie of yours. No problem, I'll do that now. A cyborg, identical to the one who failed to kill Connor, that will be me, must now protect her 10-year-old son, John, from even more advanced and powerful cyborg, Robert Patrick. And in this one, I say, I'll be back, and I say, chill out, dickwad, and then I say, hasta la vista, baby.
Same make.
These were taken at the West Highland Police Station, 1984. You were there.
Same model.
These were taken today.
You have to let me see my son. He's in great danger.
New mission. Once, he was programmed to destroy the future.
You don't know what it's like to try to kill one of these things.
Now, his mission
Get down.
is to protect it.
Come with me if you want to live.
You're really real.
His loyalty is to a child.
Who sent you?
You did. 35 years from now.
And his enemy
He's a Terminator like you, right?
Not like me.
is the deadliest machine ever built.
Can it be destroyed?
Unknown.
This time, there are two. Terminator 2.
I love the intro for this movie. It's very haunting. You have children playing in the playground, and it cuts to the playground being destroyed, and then you have like destroyed cars, and then like there's skulls everywhere.
So many skulls.
Yeah,
So many skulls just rolling over all of the skulls.
Metal.
Like,
Not as much as T1 though. There was the entire ground was skulls in Terminator 1.
Yeah.
Like that was just all
Yeah.
skulls. No
That's
bones.
Where are
just
the
skulls.
other bones?
Yeah, I wrote
Just
that down in my
skulls.
notes.
Just skulls.
Where are the other bones?
Just-
like there's
You
just
only have
skulls.
4 skulls.
Terminators use those as flutes. They drill holes in them. They play.
Yeah,
Like
Like
in
the
Army of
Arsenal.
Darkness.
Exactly.
Yeah, the ground in 2029 LA is just broken bits of concrete and skulls. That's all it is,
Yep.
according to T1.
Mhm.
Yeah, so then like one of the I won't say 1000. That's not till like 5 minutes later. One of the T1 fuck. One of the T800 endoskeletons press a skull.
Yeah.
And there was a big epic battle between the humans and the machines, and then
Mhm.
Sarah fills you in on
Mhm.
the story so far, just in case you forgot or you haven't seen the first one.
Yeah. No, you could easily jump into this movie and not have seen the first one, like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and
Right.
completely understand what's going on.
Right, and I think it's interesting that this event is called Judgment Day because it's almost like a punishment in a way for us being city to each other.
Mhm.
There's even a part later in the movie at the gas station / burger joint where the two kids are shooting each other with the toy guns,
Mhm.
and then John is like, "We're not gonna make it," and then Arnold's like, "It's your program. It's in your nature to kill each other," kind of thing. So it's almost
But that's also coming from a reprogrammed robot. I mean, we can all change. I think that's what the whole movie is about, in a sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, it's
we just
summed
need
up
to
at
be
the very end of the
reprogrammed
movie.
from what we are. Yeah, yeah.
She directly says it at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
You know, if a Terminator can learn the value of a human life, maybe
Right.
we can too.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
Can
for
too.
sure.
Maybe.
We're
Yeah.
and that's the wrap on Terminator 2. We got to the end.
Yay, we're done.
Yay! Go work,
So
go work, everyone.
Yeah.
interesting about watching this title sequence with the playground being engulfed in flame, and you even have a little nod to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse with those little teeter-totter bouncies. I don't know.
I missed that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
Yeah.
even think about
Yeah.
it that way, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
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 Especially the ones on fire. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
this is real interesting to watch this after watching Oppenheimer, realizing that no, nuclear explosions and assault is a real thing because of
Oh, yeah.
Oppenheimer.
I mean, yeah, no, like,
Like that's scary.
Well-
it's so abrasive, like seeing it from like an American's perspective. Because we dropped those bombs on a different country, and most Americans don't, for the most part, don't really care because it was so far.
Don't even think about it.
And don't even think about it because it's in such a place. But like dropping a bomb on Los Angeles makes it relevant again. Like it's
Right.
Yeah.
seeing
Well,
that
and
destruction. Wild. Yeah.
I'm just gonna
Right,
point to the flag behind me. So I am from New Mexico.
Mhm.
Mm.
okay.
So and I work at Sandia National Labs. I'm applying there again. That's actually one of the things. My background is engineering. I teach special education now, but I have very actively made a decision. I'm trying to apply to positions that aren't related to nuclear bombs.
Right.
I've kind of reached a point where I'm also like, okay, I'll do it. But there was a long
Sure.
time where I was just like, you know, it is a doomsday device. I mean,
Yeah.
essentially, if any country shoots off any nuclear bomb, everyone just shoots off all of them. That's just
Right.
It is mutually assured
Yeah.
destruction, and that is like I think, you know, now you're talking about it in T2. I mean, that's what happens. Everybody
Mhm.
dies.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know,
know.
Matt Damon said in an interview about Oppenheimer that he said that this is something that we need to be more worried about. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think what the playground with all the playground scenes brilliantly illustrate is that like we just live our normal everyday life. We don't really think about that. And then all of a sudden, oh, a fucking mushroom cloud happened,
Mhm.
and we all die. Like it's freaking it's scary. Like it really is scary to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, and that's one of the things I think when the original Terminator was made, it was kind of during the height of that nuclear fear. I mean, that was like they used to have like the students today, they do practice active shooter drills. And when I was in school, we didn't have those yet. And I grew up during the Columbine era, you know, the post Columbine era, so before Sandy Hook, post Columbine, but we weren't practicing active shooter drills, and now they are. But if you were a kid in the 80s, you were probably practicing, you know, nuclear bomb drills.
Duck and cover.
Yeah, duck and cover. You know,
under your desk.
So effective.
Yeah, well, they kind of make fun of that in the Iron Giant, the Brad Bird animated movie, because that's like a whole sequence that the little boy losses in class, which is real funny. Now, as you guys know, I'm a big metal head. My favorite band of all time is Metallica. There's a song on that opens Red the Lightning called Fire Was Fire, which is about nuclear assault. And the opening line is, "Do unto others as they done to you. What the hell had this world coming to?" And it's going back to it's in your nature to kill each other. That Arnold says. And because you're taught, I hope a lot of us are taught to be kind to each other. But like you look out in the world today, there's a lot of shitty people. Like people are just shitty to each other all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great people. And I try to focus on that, but like, good God, like I don't think we're gonna make it through the apocalypse.
Well, and I would say
robot, zombie. Like I don't know if we're gonna make it.
And you know, people have been shitty to each other throughout history. It's true though. So it's just like there's nothing new that people are terrible to one another.
Yeah, we're really safer than we've ever been. But I do think, and this is the point I wanted to get to, we have learned to channel that aggression. I think people are still aggressive, but I think what we don't have gladiators anymore. We have football players, right? We have boxers, we have MMA fighters. I think there is an innate human desire for violence, and we get it out through video games, we get it out through movies, we get it out through boxing and MMA and wrestling. Like we have basically elected modern gladiators and entertainers to help us to satiate that urge for violence.
Okay, well, that's the thing. But what you're saying that we let our anger out through entertainment, that's exactly how it was at the Judas Priest concert. Like I'm kind of going through a lot right now. I actually just got terminated from my job because my Staples store closed, and so now I gotta find a new job. And so like I'm really, I'm a little stressed right now about that. But, like, and this was like I went to this concert like 5 days before we closed, so I lurked the last 4 days of that store being open and just rocking out. And there's like one point during the song Painkiller where the dude Robin Halford like left out that iconic scream in the middle of it, and I stand up, do the devil horns, and I started beating my chest like King Kong, and it felt good. Like it made me forget about life for a while. So I think with violence and aggression, if it's done in a healthy way through video games and metal music or whatever, in small amounts, in small, like if it it can affect you for sure. Like
I mean, if we let it define us, then it becomes a problem. I'm the same way. So like I recently went to Death Clock, which if you have a chance to go see them, they're touring right now with Dragon Force and Necro Goblin. Which is a great show. I've seen Dragon Force a few times. The first time I've seen Death Clock, but I don't love being in the mosh pit as much as I did in my 20s, especially now that I'm in my mid 30s. I've got a messed up ankle. I've got a messed up shoulder. I hurt, but but kind of to what you were saying, like I used to love to get in the middle of the pit. I just start like, and there's this physical release when you're in that middle, that battering and that beating, and you're just screaming, and just all the bullshit you're dealing with in the world melts away for a little bit, and you get to have this experience.
Yeah, like, dude, my freaking like right arm was hurting for a week because I was like,
oh, I bet.
yeah. It felt good. Like, it was fun. Like, it was my 30th birthday. Like, that day, I've been around the sun 30 times. And it was a special experience with me and my mom because he knew I was, like, super excited to go see Judas fucking Priest. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was the best concert I've ever been to. Like, it was truly unique. And
Okay, so I'm going to ask, do they play Judas is Rising and Electric Eye? Because those are probably my two favorite
they did
songs.
Electric Eye. They did that at the first song in the encore.
I love that song.
Yeah.
So Terminator 2.
Electric Eye turns in. I'm going to weave it in because guess what? Skynet is the Electric Eye.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
I mean, literally,
okay.
Skynet is a defense system. It's tied into everything.
Yeah.
It is the Electric Eye because the song is about surveillance. You know, and the Skynet system was developed to be like tied into all the defense organization stuff, like to help us make military decisions really quickly, help us do policing. And basically, it identifies humanity in and of itself as a threat. As like, you know what, we're gonna kill all these people.
Yeah.
Which is my tie-in. I'm gonna see the floor.
Yeah.
Drop it back in. Yes. Terminator 2. Where were we at?
Real quick, Jackson. Did you have anything you wanted to say about what we just talked about?
About metal music?
No, just about like violence and nuclear attacks and safety. And
I was gonna let Eric talk because I know he loves this movie so much.
Yeah.
I do love Terminator 2. But it's a movie for me that like defined like the 90s. Like I feel like every movie that came out after this movie kind of wanted to be this movie in some ways. How could
it not?
Yeah, I mean, like spending uber an amount of like special effects, and like James Cameron would go ahead and do it again in like for True Lies, and then again for Titanic,
right?
Avatar.
But it's a
good job at it too.
It's a movie that still really holds up as far as visually. It still looks really great. Like even the stuff that kind of looks bad don't look as bad as like stop motion exoskeletons from the 80s. There's still like moments in this movie that work really well. There are like wonderful like emotional moments, and like I remember hearing an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger early on. It's like James Cameron wasn't planning on doing this movie. It wasn't like a movie that was like, oh, I have to make a Terminator 2. It's like someone came to him and was like, we bought the rights, you're gonna make a Terminator 2. He was like, what do you got? And they're like, oh, I guess I'll write something. So they wrote this movie. They gave it to Arnold Schwarzenegger. They wrote it on a plane to like Cannes for something.
Yeah.
And he was just like, shit, I don't like it. I'm supposed to be the hero. Like, it doesn't make sense. I'm the bad guy. And like, but for me, like as a kid in the 90s, when this movie came out, this was like, I wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger to be my like, best friend. I wanted like that metal Terminator teddy bear that like helped you out in the future. I don't know. I love this movie.
Yeah. Now let's go on. Let's continue going on this letter note. I freaking love the bar scene where he shows up naked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's either soft or like turned on by Arnold.
All the women are like,
the women in the bar.
Yeah.
Like,
all the men are like,
and then he just takes out all those biker dudes. Funny story. The parts there's the majority of the suit. He had on Hawaiian style underwear, and they filmed this in an actual biker bar with actual bikers. Like almost everybody else in this scene were actual bikers. And so he's walking around with these boxers on. Well, you know, in between takes, this one really drunk woman comes up to him and he's like, "What's going on?" And then Arnold's like, "It's Mel's football night."
Perfect.
Oh, Arnold.
But also, I mean, this movie is so much more playful than the first one.
Yes,
it's much more of like a popcorn movie. The first movie is very gritty and down to earth.
Dude,
this one is
the icing on the cake of this bar scene is Bad the Bone.
Oh sure.
See,
That's
I
actually-
actually
That's one
don't
of the
like
things
that
I have
choice.
written down.
Even before that, like it's like tossing the guy through the window and he like lands on the grill and can't get off of it.
Right.
Like all those
That is
things.
pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
It's like it's like that lighthearted sort of like weird, almost it's like physical comedy. It's like you're doing a Three Stooges bit inside of like a serious Terminator movie. It's wonderful.
Yeah, well then they show how
Yeah.
lethal the T-800 is, but without killing anybody.
Oh, this is a T-801 now, right?
Oh no, he's out. He's out to murder people at the top. Like he just wants
Yeah.
that. He wants-
Yeah, but he can't.
But that
He
was
can't
one thing
yet.
I noticed.
He can't once he meets his John, but
Well,
like,
yeah, but I
he would
guess
murder
it's
any of
kind
those people.
establishing that he's like kind of more good. Like he didn't actually kill anybody. He kills people. He killed those guys in the first one.
And honestly, though, if you're staying within the logic of the movie, then he should have fucking murdered everyone in there because he doesn't learn not to kill until after he meets John.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think
Yeah,
the Terminator in the first movie, I mean, he doesn't just kill everyone. Anyone that gets in his way, he does.
Right.
So, like, he only needs
Sure,
the one guy's
sure.
clothes.
But
And that
he
was
didn't
one thing I
kill
didn't
him.
notice. So, like,
We don't know
there's
if he
a
killed
little
him
bit
or
of
not.
camp. But there's a little bit of camp in. Oh, yes, there's quite a bit of camp in the second movie.
Yeah.
The first movie, zero camp.
Right.
All the comedy was unintentional. And this one, I mean, there's like, so right up until the point where Bad of the Bone plays, and that was one of the things I kind of had a question about, because at this point in time, Bad of the Bone is such a cliche,
Oh,
and I'm
sure.
wondering when T2 came out, because again, I'm like 3 when the movie comes out. Is Bad of the Bone a cliche yet?
No, not for a 7-year-old. He's the coolest dude in
Yeah.
that bar. for a 7-year-old watching this movie, like he's
but
too cool.
how much of that is played for the laugh? How much of that is serious? I'm not sure for the time. And it's one of those things because we can't truly look at it, without all the history that's come after that.
Right.
You're kind of like was it Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah has become like kind of like a dreaded thing in like television, right? Versus like the first couple things that did it, it was like Shrek does it, Scrubs does it, and it's beautiful, right? And so many people do it, it becomes a trope.
Yeah.
And
I think Problem Child came out a year before this movie, and I think that it played that song in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think by like maybe like Parent Trap, maybe I think it's when.
So you're saying Problem Child is more bad than the Terminator? That's what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, definitely, they're willing to be more playful. There's definitely an eye towards comedy here.
Sure. Yeah. It's a little lighter.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's trying to appeal to a broader audience, I think, than Terminator 1 was.
Yeah, and
Terminator 1 is like definitely it's that B movie that becomes really successful. And then, I mean, I hadn't heard the story you had said because I haven't had much time to background check on T2.
Sure.
But that kind of makes sense, like, because T1 does kind of feel like it ends versus where T2 is now this continuation. And I do feel like it works pretty seamlessly with T1.
Yeah.
But I feel like James Cameron told the story he wanted to tell with Terminator. And so now we're coming back. And so it actually kind of makes sense that this is a continuation after the fact as opposed to an intended continuation, especially considering the time frame. Generally movies at the time are not waiting 6 or 7 years to make their sequel.
Unless you're
usually-
Ghostbusters, I guess, and you wait 5.5 years, something like that. But
or Mission Impossible, or John Wick, or Planet of the Apes.
I mean, those are after that. But yes, you're right.
Well, I'm just saying they take their time to make those.
Yeah, but the model at the time was more like Friday the 13th or Police Academy.
Let's do it again next year.
Let's do it again really, really
every
quickly.
single year. Yeah.
Like Star Wars, I think was actually kind of an outlier at that time because they were waiting 3 years between sequels.
Yeah,
right.
Like at the time, Star Wars was like, oh my God, they're waiting 3 years to make the next one. So a 7-year gap is a big gap. I mean, even by like
about it. it's like it's not special anymore. Like when you got like a fucking Star Wars show like every other month on Disney Plus compared to like
No, that's fair.
Impossible,
Yeah.
where like you have to wait like 2, 3, 4, or even 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Cruise doing another crazy stunt in one of the movies, or a John Wick movie. Like,
I think Lucas hit the mark with the 3-year gap on Star Wars. I think 3 years is enough time for a movie to build anticipation without losing interest.
Right.
And I feel like modern shows, Star Wars excluded, because they're putting out like Star Wars and Marvel are putting out so many shows. Like there's just fatigue there.
Yeah.
But like
we
if you
kinda
look
wait
at like
longer than expected for the new Spider-Verse movie, because that was supposed to come out this year, but then like that didn't happen.
See, that doesn't bother
it's
me
just
actually. I feel
diminishing
like
quality.
1 year is not enough time for a true sequel.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like that
Yeah.
would be a good thing.
Yeah, with the exception of Endgame. Endgame was kind of unique. I felt like Endgame definitely was timed right with the 1 year release.
Right.
But like for most movies, you need 3 years. But I feel like they're doing that with like television now. It's like, oh, it's going to be 2 or 3 years until you get the next season, and it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
with TV, even if it's long form, you're losing your audience, you know. And so I'm kind of looking at like Terminator, like I don't think it's not like there's not an audience anticipating T2. So it must have been kind of like today how we have like a franchise reboot. That kind of must have been how T2 felt when it came out. It's like, oh, hey, you know, this movie's been kind of building.
Remember this movie you watched on
classic.
HBO late at night? Yeah.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
way back
well, that's
when.
the thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching a doc and they're saying like, you know, when it comes out, it's a moderate success, but as time goes on, it keeps building and building and building. So by the time T2 gets there, it's already. I hate to say cult classic because I feel like Terminator isn't really a cult classic. It's transcended but at the time T2 came out, I think maybe it started that way, but it built into beyond being a cult classic.
Sure.
So now you've got something that you can really tentpole.
Right.
I guess at the time maybe they don't tentpole movies. I'm not sure because like now we have tentpole franchises.
Sure.
But you know it's something people are really excited about because they really like the first Terminator, so they want to appeal to a broader audience. They want to make sure because they know kids are going to come see it, so they got a young star cast in it. There's not as much, I think, overall gore. Like I think there's like a couple scenes where there's some blood, but it's not like Arnold's entire arm is covered in blood and he's like cutting off bits of his face and shit, you know.
I mean, he does cut off his own arm in the movie, but yeah, it would be probably PG-13 without like a couple swear words and a few other like little bits of gore here and there. Like could easily be a general audience admission sort of thing for this movie.
Well, today it might be a PG-13 because they feel like the guy.
That's actually possible too. Yeah.
I mean, well, the newer Terminators, I feel like they're all PG-13.
They are, except for like Dark Fate was R.
Oh, was
for
it?
some
Like
reason.
I said, I didn't see.
But
that
it
one.
wasn't. But it's also I don't know why it was R. Like it doesn't justify its.
You also
R-rated.
you gotta think about it in terms of who Arnold Schwarzenegger was when the first movie came out versus who he was when this one came out. Because the first one
Conan
came out, he had done the 2 Conan movies, but that was kind of it. And then after that, he has Commando, he has Predator, The Running Man, Twins. So he started to do comedy now. He's got Total Recall, Kindergarten Cop. All of those happen.
He was more domesticated.
And for the most part, were hits. Like he they're all string of hits.
And there's some other ones in there like Raw Deal and stuff like that. But like, and they were smaller movies. But at this point, he's solidified. He is a bankable star now.
You have to think about the 90s action movies. It's like in the 80s, you had like these big hulking guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. In the 90s, it was more domesticated. Like Arnold, he just played a guy in Total Recall who worked as a construction worker, and he had a wife.
Yeah,
Kindergarten,
which is completely different from the book the book version of that, which is like a nebbish sort of like bookworm dude.
Yeah,
compared to like Arnold Schwarzenegger playing him.
Yeah, and then And then Kindergarten Cop, he's a cop hanging out with kids trying to find this criminal, and then Terminator he's bigger. So like, yeah, he's more domesticated. Now I will say I think the T-1000 is one of the scariest movie villains of all time.
Oh yes,
It's amazing
fantastic.
how well that character works.
Yes.
Yeah.
And visually and like thematically, like can literally be anybody, and for the time period, all those visual effects work really well. There are times you can tell when they spray painted a guy silver, like in close up, like over like OTS's sort of thing, but like
but you have like they use
most
practical
of the visual
effects too,
work.
like when he gets shot, like those.
Oh yeah.
They just put like
There's like
tinfoil
big
and
blurs,
stuff like you know on his body.
Well, that's
but
that's
I
one of the
feel
things I
like-
noticed. Even some of the things that were done using older VFX technology. So when we're and actually, and I want to talk a little about the trailers because we talked a little bit about that earlier. But when
say
we
one thing real
definitively
quick, Benny?
learn,
Can I say one thing real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So with Arnold in the first one being the villain, he has no personality whatsoever. Like he didn't even try to be human. I think with the T-1000, there's points where he tried to be human, like when he's talking to the foster parent, and he's like,
right,
yeah,
you know where John went? Or when he's looking at the bicycle at the hospital, and he's like, hey, it's a real nice bike. That he tried to be human at some point.
I noticed that. So, but one of the things, let's see,
Get out.
But,
It's like the
when
guy,
we
like
can-
the helicopter pilot jumps out.
when we learn for sure that he is the enemy, you know, in the corridor in the back of the mall.
Yeah.
You know, even some of the VFX that are a little older, I think they still work really well. So like, I mean, yeah, like it's a very obvious VFX shot. But the integration is so seamless that even though it's older technology, it's older VFX, like it just works so well. And it's one of the things, like as I'm rewatching it, I'm doing anticipation of this, right?
Sure.
And so I'm being super mindful and aware of everything. But if I'm just like taking myself out of that, like it works really, really well.
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
it's a fascinating character too, with all the different things that he can do. And I think more the modern day equivalent of that would be Sandman from Spider-Man 3. Like like that kind of character.
Well, I mean, it's also it's a visualization, so it's a lot of practical things happening with an augmented digital effect on top of it. So it is like a flaming truck that a digital character walks out of. Like they're like foreground elements that are like layering these things and like grounding them in reality. And it happens throughout the movie. Like they're always like foreground elements or background elements that like layer the visual effects, which is like, always wonderful.
Like
it comes from a director who knows visual effects, who came from a background of visual effects, who can like
the fact that James Cameron, whoever, like just came up with this type of liquid metal character, like that is so fascinating to me. That he just
it's just a concept that you're just like
can't work, won't work, and they fucking made it work. It's great. It's so good.
So well today. And it's like we haven't seen a mimic since then. So I think probably the best other analogy is oh god, I'm blanking on her name from X-Men.
Mystique. Yeah,
Mystique.
I love a shapeshifter. Yeah.
I mean, but like, I mean, this is just something clearly it's built into this world. He is realizing his initial vision for the Terminator. I mean, it just works so well. This fear of you don't know who is coming for you.
Right.
And it could be anyone at any time. And you're all of a sudden, you're taken by surprise. I mean, I think that works phenomenally.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now I got a question. Does anybody find John Connor annoying?
I know a lot of people did. But I also teach that age group, so I find him to be average.
He's a kid from that time period too. And I love the
I
inclusion
yeah.
of the Guns N' Roses song. I think that was so awesome. And
Yeah.
that was part of the hype of this movie with that music video with Arnold in the club was Guns N' Roses. Like, I mean, and this movie is way more toyetic than the first one.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I had toys. I had Terminator 2 toys. Like there's like one where like his chest falls down and he shoots a rocket out of it. It's crazy. It's
Why
crazy
not?
that this is like a hard, like, I mean, it's not a hard R, but it's like an R-rated movie that they're like building towards like children.
Yeah,
And
like
I mean,
I
I had RoboCop toys as a kid.
I had RoboCop toys too. You like the little snap packs,
and that's way
Yeah.
more of a hardcore
Yeah.
R
They
movie.
freaking
Yeah.
had
It
Freddy
is,
Krueger
yeah.
toys in the 80s, and he
It's
was
wild.
like a child molester, child murderer.
Mhm.
Fuck.
Yeah.
No, but I have a T800 or T1000 NECA figure, which is really cool. It's awesome.
Start it
Paper
over.
20 to Dr. Silberman about Judgment Day is very relevant today because so many people are pleading that something needs to be done with about school shootings, the economy, climate change, etc. And government officials just don't want to hear our cries, and it's really sad. And then when she's denied contact with her son, that gets me, man.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think this movie works like timelessly in some ways because it's literally a fill in the blank of like what could be wrong with the world at any given point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like they have a distant relationship. Like John doesn't want to have anything really to do with her, with his mom, really, because he thinks she's crazy and everything.
And she can't talk to him because the doctor won't allow it. Yeah.
Right. It's his mind at this point, like she's fucking crazy. And how Arnold,
or is he just like a sociopath who is just using her for like I don't know, like he comes off as a fucking kind of a weirdo, like the way he's sort of like using, I mean, maybe, but I don't know. I mean,
well, so like, he talks about in his childhood they spent a lot of time like Nicaragua. I think the exact was like spent a lot of time like Nicaragua and places like that. Your mom would date any guy that could, teach her.
Oh, you're talking about John. I was talking about the psychiatrist, but yeah, you're right though.
Oh no, fuck the psychiatrist. He's an asshole. Oh. No, I'm talking about John. Well, that was the thing in the first movie. So in T1, when he meets Sarah for the first time, he's like, "Oh, I can make an entire career off of her."
Yeah,
and apparently he does.
He does. Yeah.
But it's just, and that's one of the things. So again, I only got halfway through for my note taking for this viewing for this podcast, but clearly the cover up by the company, so the manufacturing company in the first movie, whatever cover up they did had been really good because that entire
that they found the endoskeleton in that factory, and then it ended up in Miles Dyson's hands. And I just want to touch on that because the part where he looked at the microchip.
And that was one question I had.
And he sees the hand. That's very eerie, knowing what this later is going to lead to. Like that is.
But it's also just like that pretext of like future, like if he didn't come back, then they would have never invented this, so then they would never exist. Then you're like in this like time warp no man's land where you're like
after the time
I don't know
again.
But that was definitely one of the questions I had is how was the company able to cover this up before the police or the EMTs ever got there? Because I mean the factory is closed at the end of T1. This is all off hours. They just blown up a Mack truck full of gasoline outside, which by the way, they're throwing like actual flame material around during T1 for that set, which is amazing. That would not happen today. But yeah, like I'm kind of curious, like, okay, like how is this company able to cover all this up? Because this is a psychiatrist that works at the substation where all those officers are murdered because the Terminator is pursuing Sarah Connor. He should be able to figure that out. And so there's like, definitely seems like this guy is super oblivious or just a dick. I mean, it's hard to be sure which, but that was like one of the things I definitely had some questions about, like how this guy get
I
this
think
far
he's
in
very
his career and
exploitative.
just being this, huh?
I think Doctor. If you're talking about Dr. Silberman, I think he's very exploitative. And for example, when he brings in that group of science or psychologists with him, that one blonde lady with glasses looks at Sarah in her little room, and she's like fascinating. So he's exploiting Sarah Connor.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
now, unlike
I'd take that. Yeah.
Bill doing that with Sally Duvall, was very unfortunate.
Mm.
And I didn't think anything of it when I watched those clips with Dr. Phil until last year. There's this horror travel vlog channel I like to watch called can't remember what they're called, but they're a husband and wife couple, and they talk to Sally Duvall because they're making a movie with her, to talk to her like a normal human being, not like a science experiment like Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
And so it really opened my eyes. I'm like, yeah, fuck Dr. Phil. You know what I mean?
Is that what Fraser
Greenlight
was saying all
that's what
along?
they're called. They're really cool. You should check them out. They go to like different Halloween horror event and like go to horror movie locations. It's really cool. But anyways, I freaking love the first chase scene. That's probably my favorite action scene of all time.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Building up to that, to the hallway scene, to the T-1000 looking at the mannequin, to him chasing them in the parking lot, establishes so much.
Well, no, I mean, even that first like little bit where where John is running down the hall and there's a Terminator at one end and a Terminator at the other end, and one's a person that you should maybe trust, and the other one is a biker. It's like an outlaw. It's like someone on the outside, and like it works really well. It doesn't work if you've seen the promotional materials movie. You obviously know that Arnold Schwarzenegger is the hero of the movie, but on a like thematic emotional level, like watching those scenes, it's like, who does he trust at this point?
Right.
And I wish they would have like held back a little bit on like that Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be like the hero of the movie.
Right,
But
and it goes back to that whole idea is like you just live your regular mundane life, and then this shit happens to you. Like it's really scary to think about.
That poor guy in the hallway just like checking like sockets, whatever he was doing, and got like shot up in between them. That poor dude.
So I do love the part when they're in the phone booth, John and the T-800, and they call the foster parents, and he's a little suspicious. He's like, "Hey, didn't you never this nice?" And then he just straight up killed the foster dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a chilling shot too.
That's a great shot.
That arm, yeah, through his like neck. Oh man,
through the milk,
like,
so good. Through the milk carton. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about it. It's like a spur of the moment thing that the T-1000 did, and then it's like, oh, I didn't know I had this. He's taking out the knife.
Not even that. It's just the assimilation of it, and so that he killed the mom, the stepmom mother of that, but assimilated into their life that the father, the stepfather didn't even know, and was just like walking around until he just completely annoyed him too much that was going to give him away and just killed him. Like it's it's so sinister.
Well, it almost felt like Michael Myers a little bit when he killing the character Bob in the kitchen, and he stabs him, and he's just hanging there on the fucking wall, and then that white spot, and he just had the head tilt. Like he's like a child or like a painter just checking out his artwork. Like it's really eerie. Is what it is.
A visual of that knife going through that milk and through his head into the cabinet is stuck in my brain.
Yeah.
Well, the hand
for the rest
off,
of my life.
You know,
yeah.
He still got, and that was one thing about the shot. My only gripe about that shot is the hand that is on, because it's already been a second.
Yeah.
So the timing. I mean, I think actually the shot in and of itself was great. The timing, I might take a little bit of beef with, but just like he's in the middle of taking that drink out of the milk, and then just like, you know, like I love the shot. The timing, maybe not as much, but I think the shot still works really well.
Great. I disagree with you there, but the use of zone. I got a fun fact about this movie.
Okay.
So they
Hit it.
actually didn't have photos of the T-800 attacking the LA police station from 1994. So they have to recreate those photos.
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
next to
okay.
that. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Huh.
That's pretty cool.
Okay. I didn't know that either. Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about this movie's having a lot of fun. The part where John discovers that the Terminator has to go obey his command, and he makes some
Mhm.
Oh, goodness.
and then he's like making the scene those two asshole guys.
Put your
And he's
leg
like-
down. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, "Fuck you, dipshit!" And he's like, "You just call."
Are you calling moi
Moi?
a
Well, the
dipshit?
thing is
Dipshit?
those guys, they didn't do anything wrong. They thought
they
that,
didn't.
this kid was in trouble,
In
being
trouble,
harassed
and
by
they tried
this
to help
giant
him.
man. They come over to try to help, and then John just turns on them.
Yeah, the wannabe carrot top guy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but like they're being good Samaritans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
John
then-
is definitely a brat. Like,
Yeah, and then I like how Arnold is picking him up by his hair, and he's like, "Who's the dipshit now? You John douchebag."
Oh goodness.
You're like, sorry, I was trying to save you from this molester.
Yeah.
Now I get hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the hospital scene, I love the part when the T-1000 comes up from the chucker floor behind the cop, just when he discovers that he got a full house, and then he just fucking dies.
Mm-hmm.
Today must be a lucky day. Yeah.
Well, actually, fun fact, that was actually twins, and they're actually pretty famous twins in Hollywood. They were in
Oh, okay.
Judgement too.
Yeah. No, it's a real life twin set that they use for that
Nice.
finger point.
I was
thing.
wondering if they did because I'm like, this is like really seamless.
Yeah.
Well, even in like this was in the director's cut, but the part when they're passing up or sewing up Sarah again in the director's cut, the mirror, her in the mirror, that's actually her twin.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Linda Hamilton's real life twin.
Oh, I didn't realize that she had a twin.
Yeah.
I just love how these action scenes, like, they just continue to tell the story. Like, for example, you find out how the T-1000 worked, and Sarah learns that the T-800 is there to protect her and John in the hospital. Like, that's,
Yeah.
I think that's what the best kind of action directors will do. They won't have an action scene just to have an action scene, and that's, I guess, where I was kind of coming from our Age of Ultron review, where that just went on for like 10 minutes for no reason.
Yeah.
Where the very tail end of that action scene, where they're in that spot, that circle building, and you had the whole thing with Thor and Iron Man and Vision going up against Ultron. That's story right there. And you can have a little few action baits here and there that are just there just for spectacle. But for the most part, the best action scenes need to continue the story somehow.
Sure. Yeah, of course. It's like the first movie where they end up in that car chase, and he expounds everything that's like happening in the world.
Yeah.
This movie's a little more succinct in its explanations, and like it's a little more straightforward in how it explains itself.
Right.
It doesn't feel as sort of like clunky. It's kind of a modern blockbuster in a lot of ways.
Well, it
Like
has
I
less
feel like
to
this
explain
movie,
because the first movie's already explained what's going on. So this movie doesn't really not have to go into too much detail about it.
Yeah, and I love how Sarah doesn't entirely trust the T-800. And he tells John and Sarah that he had detailed file on the human anatomy, and Sarah says, "I bet makes you more of a efficient killer." And in the director's cut, going back to that, he tries to smash the T-800 microchip, and John stops her, saying, "If I'm supposed to be a great leader, shouldn't you learn to trust me?" I just love that whole dynamic, and I'm very much, I'm gonna air my dirty laundry a little bit. I'm very much like that by mom. Like my mom, like I have a hard time trusting my mom sometimes. And maybe it might be an autism thing. Maybe it's just me, just in general. But I have a hard time trusting my mom, and I'm learning to trust her a lot more. So it's kind of a reverse of in a way. I also like that you find out that the T-800 can learn from humans by spending more time with them, which leads to one of my favorite parts where John teaches the T-800 to be more cool and laid back, which leads to him giving John and Sarah the thumbs up as he's lowered in the lava. And that's where the whole off la vista scene kind of comes in the car when he's like, when people give you an attitude, tell them off la vista, baby, and chill out, dickwad, and
Yeah.
no problem.
This movie could have been really bad.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
it was built in that there's like a sort of a child compartment to this like infinite killing machine, and he's gonna teach him things that are cool for nowadays, and it's just it could have been really bad.
Real quick, I want to go back.
I feel that it's aged pretty well for the most part.
Well, I want to go back real quick to the action continues the story, because at the very end, when they're number 9, they need to get the microchip and destroy everything. And then the police come, and then Arnold has to stop them. And then there's a whole chase on the highway and then they get to the factory, and then there's more story there. I won't get into all that because, this video has gone long enough.
It's only been 3 hours. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of editing to do this.
It's a 2-parter.
Yeah, we are pushing up on 2.5 at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, because this goes up on Wednesday, so that's gonna be
You might just split up into 2 parts.
Oh, I don't have a job right now, so it's fine. And then one of my favorite parts is when Sarah, for a brief moment, becomes the thing that she hates by attempting to kill Dyson.
Right.
And then the
T-800
tell John.
It's such a big swing. It's such a big swing for like a major character in the movie to just outright kill another person.
She's just gonna straight up murder this
guy. And it's such a big swing.
And
I love that she can't do it, but man, it is.
Yeah. So the T-800 tells John that killing Dyson might prevent the war, and John's response is, "Have you learned anything?" Which is the same thing that Sarah has to learn during this scene, compassion, because she sees the error of her rage when she sees Dyson's wife and son. And it's a daughter he has a daughter in the director's cut, because there's another moment with him and his wife about him being a workaholic. And I don't know, that's just like going back to the director's cut. It's just those little moments that I like.
See, that's not the one I watched. I watched the one that's on Paramount Plus. So I guess that's the theatrical cut. Yeah. So I think I've seen the director's cut, but it's been so long I don't even
going
remember.
With the theatrical cut, because it just would have been easier on all of us. Even though I don't like that. The preferred version is theatrical, and I've always watched it, so it has a special place in my heart. Did you guys want to say anything about the whole her killing Dyson kind of thing?
I mean, I think that the Dyson section of the movie.
Oh, real quick, Jackson. I just got to do one thing.
Yeah. The whole Dyson section of the movie is, I think, kind of slows the movie down a lot. I understand why it's there and why it needs to be there, but it's not the most interesting to me. Although, the Dyson's death scene that you were just mimicking is one of the most chilling death scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
It is super impactful. I think, it's just like, I mean, he's barely hanging on, and he's picking his moment. I mean, it is super meaningful. I think. I think a lot of. I'm not going to say a lot of other movies have tried to imitate that particular scene, but they're trying to do the same sort of thing. But you have a character, he's worked the last 7 years, or I mean, I'm not sure exactly when is T2 set exactly, because John, what is he supposed to be, like 10?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
10,
Okay.
11, something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess it's supposed to be 1994, 1995. So it's actually set a
Mhm.
little bit after the movies actually been put out. But so let's just say this guy spent the last 10, 12 years focused on this one goal, but he quickly accepts the potential reality of his work. And even though he's a family man, and maybe because he's a family man, he stays behind to make sure that work is not completed. And I mean, definitely as I get older, I'm more prone to cry at such things. And that's definitely one of the scenes that like gets me. It's just like that is someone who has really looked beyond his own self-preservation and is looking out for the future of humanity, maybe even just the future of his family. I don't know, but he has transcended that self-preservation instinct, and he is really looking to what matters, and he is executing that.
No, and it's also like his death scene. He's holding that like model of the chip, like the big model of the chip that was broken in half. That's what he's holding before he like drops it
Yeah.
onto the thing. It's I love it.
All right.
It's so good.
That's some powerful stuff, man. And going back to powerful stuff, I want to talk about my favorite part in the whole movie, the whole Terminator guys. And it's Sarah's monologue to Dyson when he says, "How are we supposed to know?" And then C goes, "Yeah, right. How are you supposed to know? Fucking men like you built a hydrogen bomb. Men like you thought it up. You think you're so creative. You don't know what it's like to create life, to create something. Feel it growing inside you. All you know is death and destruction." That is so beautiful, man. Like that is some like Oscar winning stuff right there. Like she should have been nominated for an Oscar just for that monologue alone. Like it is amazing. And the Academy had no problem nominating Scoring Weaver for Alien, but they couldn't nominate Lena Hamilton. Like, guess it's absurd to me. Like, she's amazing.
Depends on the year. Depends on the year. So like it could have been a second year. I can't remember what else was nominated in 91, but
I love
that was the year of Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like, I get it, but at the same time, like Linda Hamilton in this movie is great. And I don't like to what Jackson was saying earlier, I don't know why she didn't have a bigger career outside of this.
Right.
Like
I love her.
It's kind of wild.
I love this character more than Ripley, and Ripley's awesome.
Yeah. No, her
like the
all that bits at the smelting factory near the end are wonderful.
Yeah.
Like she's the craziest, strongest human being I've seen in a movie in a long while.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys want to say anything else before we go to favorite part and least favorite part, and we wrap this episode up?
I mean, I could talk forever about Terminator 2, but it's a great movie. You should enjoy it. Whatever.
Yeah, I freaking love this movie. All right, so favorite part, least favorite part. Let's go to Benny. What's your favorite part and least favorite part?
When the T-1000 turns his knife. I mean, I know I griped a little bit about it earlier because of the timing thing, but just the knife turning into the hand and stabbing the foster dad through the mouth. I mean, yeah, I think his hand would have dropped a little bit earlier, but it's still such a great shot. I really like that. And then just kind of the temper tantrum the T-1000 throws after that, because like he figures out something's up. Is like, okay, the kid was wise, knew I was lying, goes out, kills the dog, which nowadays, anytime a dog dies on screen, it's like the worst thing in the world. And as a very avid dog lover, I get that. Maybe it's just because they didn't show him actually killing the dog, you just hear it.
Sure.
But like he's like, okay, clearly I got tricked into thinking the dog's name was Wolfie. But I mean that I really do appreciate that scene. As for least favorite, it might be, yeah, like it actually might be the bodybuilder scene where John is just being such a dick to the good Samaritan.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
This is like
Gant's come to save him. Yep. Oh.
Yeah, it's like we thought you were getting like kidnapped or raped or something.
Nope.
Because you're screaming, let go of me, creep, or whatever, but fuck you, kid.
What about you, Eric? What is your favorite part and least favorite part about?
Oh man. Favorite part, whole movie? I don't know what to say. No, I mean, my favorite part is probably the so it's building siege on, like, the time they like try to like infiltrate Dyson on from there on, like it's fucking gold. Yeah. And as far as least favorite part, I don't know, that's hard. Maybe I don't know if I have a least favorite part. This is like one of my like childhood favorites. I don't have a least favorite part. I kind of love this movie. Yeah.
All right. What about you, Jackson? What is your favorite part and your least favorite part?
Okay, favorite part, and it's something we haven't even mentioned yet, but when they're in the hospital and the Terminator, the T-800 gets off the elevator and Sarah sees him for the first time and she freaks out.
Yeah.
But then he gets the cool line from the first movie, "Come with me if you want to live."
Live.
And I'm like, that's such it's so stirring, to reveal to her that he's actually her protector now.
And his delivery of that line is so perfect because I mean he says it Kyle Reese says it in the first movie, but when Arnold says it in the second movie, it goes from being like a line to being iconic.
Right.
It becomes part of pop culture.
And for most people who've only seen this movie, so like I saw this movie first, like that's the line that I associate with Arnold versus the
Weird. It's way better than I'll Be Back because it has an emotional impact.
Yes.
I'll Be Back is
Come
sort
with
of
me if you
funny,
live.
dryly funny, but Come with me if you want to live. That is like that's the good stuff right there.
Least favorite part.
Oh fuck, that's good.
Least favorite part. Like I said, the whole in between the siege of Dyson's house and the smelting pot at the end, that whole section, it just goes on for a little too long. I think you could probably trim a few things out of this movie and make it more like a tight 2 hours.
Sure. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it's probably could be an easy 2 tight hours. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go with my favorite part. It's another Sarah monologue. I just fucking love this character. I think she's endlessly fascinating. Least favorite part, again, nothing. I can't think of anything I don't like about this movie. Like it's it's really good. It's my favorite action movie of all time. It's my favorite sci-fi movie of all time. Like the best sci-fi horror genre movies, like it entertains you, but it also makes you think. And for example, I just saw the new Planet of the Apes today. After recording this, and it's a spectacular sci-fi epic with a really interesting message in there, like Terminator, like Lord of the Rings, like Jordan Peele's Get Out, like The Babadook, like all these movies that we all know and love, like Frankenstein. Like, I mean, I don't know. I fucking love this movie. Eric, what is your filmmaking rating
for this movie? As far as like filmmaking, it's like a 5. Like for the time being, like where they made it, like 5, top 5. Yeah.
What about theme?
It's probably a 4.
Okay. So your overall 4 is a So you're gonna settle on the 4?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What about you, Benny? What's your filmmaking rating?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go. Let's think. I have to like try and take out my like modern understanding of cinema. I mean, at the time, it is so groundbreaking. It's one of the first movies to really fully utilize, computer animated effects.
Sure.
And like we talked about earlier, it's kind of like Jurassic Park, where those effects were really well thought out and they've really held up. And not a lot of movies. I mean, even if you go back and watch like Star Wars Episode 4, that hasn't held up as well as like Episode 5 and 6. So I think, yeah, 4.5, 5. So we'll give it a 5. Like it's held up well. It doesn't feel like you watch it and it doesn't feel outdated. And that's one of the things, especially you watch like a lot of 90s and 80s films, the way they are shot feels dated. Like, oh yeah, I can spot it like immediately. And maybe it's just because James Cameron is still like a really big director and he still has a lot of influence over modern cinema. That might be part of it. But I mean, just the way it's shot, the way the effects are done, the mix of practical and CGI, and it's really a lot of practical. It's just it's very believable in a lot of ways. So I'm going to say that. And as for themes, I think I'll give it a 4. I mean, there's a lot more about humanity, what it means to be human, and how to value life. I think.
Oh,
that wasn't
I forgot
really
about
explored as much
one of
in
my
the first
favorite
one.
lines in the Terminator is when he's about to go down into the lava, and John cries, and Arnold goes, "I now know why you cry, but it's something I can never do." And me and Jackson on the Fear of God podcast, that one of my favorite horror podcasts, we talked about the movie Megan, and I brought up that line because Megan deals with a lot of humanity and technology and all that stuff. So shout out to the Fear of God podcast because I love. So yeah, those guys are awesome. So that's a number 9. What about you, Jackson? Where would you put filmmaking?
I mean, I would go 4.5 on filmmaking. The only reason I'm dinging it a half point is because I do think this movie's about 15 minutes too long.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's 100% fair.
What about thematic?
Like a 3.5. I don't see all the super deep stuff in it that y'all seem to, but it's definitely got more to it than the first movie. So I give it a 3.5.
You're gonna mess with the official score.
Oh, whatever.
Fuck it. No, dig in.
All right, so
don't do it. Yes.
For you, I'm gonna go with filmmaking. I'm gonna go 5. Like he took everything that was great about the original Terminator and he kicked it up a notch. Like this is like full throttle, like fucking, like adrenaline, like Terminator movie. The first one is more kind of like grounded and kind of like frenzy, kind of dirty, but this is like this is the definition of a summer blockbuster. Up there was like Top Gun Maverick and Jurassic Park and Jaws. Like this feels like the summer. As far as themes go, I'm gonna go number 5, so that gives us a 10. Because it's a continued that whole
full 10
about humanity and what it means to be human and all that stuff. So that means that the official Horror Sci-Fi Beyond score for Terminator 2 is 9 out of 10.
Nice.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Pretty good score. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually pretty significantly better than the first one. All right.
Visually, this is like like leaps and bounds compared to the first one.
See, I think I like them both equally, but there's just so different types of movies.
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
And I think they're done about as well in both modes that they're operating in.
Okay. Yep. Now, I gotta ask you guys a question.
Sure.
Any of you experience T2 battle across time in 3D at Universal Studios.
Yes, I have seen that show.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
it
I've seen it.
twice. The first time I saw it was I was of course aware of Terminator, but I haven't seen any of them yet, and that's what got me to watch the movies. The second time I went, which was 10 years ago at this point, holy good God, didn't like it as much because I've seen Terminator 2 a lot.
Sure.
But I mean, it's still fun. I like the part when he knocks off the T-800 head, and then John's like, "Do you know him?" And then Arnold's like, "He was my childhood roommate."
Of course, they have now replaced that show with the Jason Bourne show.
Yeah, dude.
Which is one of the most incredible stunt shows you will ever see.
Oh, really? I'm surprised.
Okay.
Really amazing.
I really hope they were. Now that I don't believe you, I really hope they replace that with Fall Guy. That would be amazing. Fall Guy stunt show. What about you, Benny? Did you ever experience the Terminator 3D attraction at Universal?
Yes, I did actually.
Oh, yeah, you also did it.
It's been, I think I was 16. So
yeah.
It's been like 19 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I would not say I have a super great memory of it anymore, but I do remember the guy riding out on the stage and everything.
Yeah.
So it was fun.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So speaking of Universal Studios, just real quick, and then we'll wrap this up. Jackson actually lived in Florida for a while, and he actually worked Halloween Horror Nights as a bartender.
Yep.
Me and my dad went down there this last year for HSN, and we actually did a little meetup, and we rode
nice.
twice.
The Mummy is a really good ride.
Dude, besides like E.T., that's my favorite ride at Universal Studios. I freaking love the Mummy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mummy's awesome. But anyways, guys, this episode has gone long enough.
Very long.
Very long.
3 hours.
Sorry, everyone.
I apologize for nothing.
But anyways, guys.
Suck it. Jerks.
I wouldn't say suck it, but I don't apologize.
All right. If you like this episode and you want to see more spooky and weird content, make sure you slash that subscribe button and follow me on Facebook and Twitter X at For Sci-Fi and Beyond. And also, don't forget to leave this episode a killer comment and give it a King Kong size up. And always remember, stay weird.